Welcome to another episode of the Truth to Faith podcast. I'm your host, Cliff Steven. Um, we got our regular buddy on, Brandon Kroll. Before we start, I just want to say I haven't podcasted in a while. I had reached out to a couple people who they make music, they preach, and they must have watched some of my content and I was watching their content and they were kind of like razzing on some of the things I do. I'm not going to say everything I've ever said on this podcast was true or right. The purpose of this podcast is to get people to open the scriptures for themselves, to build a connection with Jesus for self, to question everything, to see the reality of this spiritual war. And I've said it a million times, and I'm okay with me today. I know I'm secure in Jesus Christ. I am born again. There's been a change in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. I don't have to answer to any of you people. I truly, and I mean this with all due respect, I don't care what your opinions are. I just don't. Like, I'm being led by the word, by the spirit in my life on my path. And all this has ever been about was to get people to seek God harder, to question who they truly are in the faith. Are they in the faith? And to question reality. That's it. That's all this has been about for me. I'm not a teacher, a leader. I'm just walking my path, and I'm hopefully trying to help the ecclesia strengthen them by strengthening themselves through the relationship of their own with Christ. I'm done calling out people and saying like, well, maybe this is bad for your salvation. Your salvation is between you and Jesus. Honestly, at this point, and it's going to sound rude, I don't care about your salvation at this point. I'm not questioning anybody's salvation anymore. I'm not Jesus. I'm focused on my salvation and serving God in obedience through faith, through the word, through prayer. That's it. So, you know, I came on. I haven't podcasted in a while because again, people don't listen. You try to correct them, you try to guide them in a loving way. They get frustrated. They try to pick you apart of your walk, and it's like I'm coming from love, and I feel attacked, and I don't care. I really don't. I don't care what people's opinions are. I'm not really trying to be led by any other man but the Holy Spirit. That's it. Like, if people have a like mindset and they really see this spiritual war for what it is, then I make time. They're my ally. We have mutual respect. Like Brandon and I, we might not see eye to eye on everything. Brandon sees certain things different, but we have a mutual respect because why? We love Christ. We do, and I do. I want more people saved. But I'm done pouring into vessels that have holes or empty vessels that I'm not trying to change. Because what I've learned on this walk is you can't pour into an empty vessel or a broken vessel. Because like Jesus said, the wineskin will burst and it will spill out. I'm not doing it no more. I don't have the time or the energy. I'm fighting battles in my life on every front. Ex-wife, daughter, work, my home. Am I going to eat tonight? Like, I'm battling every day, all day. And what I've learned in this walk, when you're truly walking in truth, the people who lie to themselves on a daily basis, who they're narcissists, they're in victim mentality. Everywhere I go, every job I go, every group I go to, because I don't stay in one place because I can't do it anymore. I have to keep moving. For some reason, the narcissists, they always try to come to me. It's always because they see the light in us and they want to destroy it. And I'll just end it with this. But at my new job, there's a guy, he's constantly the victim. He's 60 years old. He acts like a 12-year-old, and he's constantly playing games. Now, I hit him with some really hard truth. It affected his heart, again, like the parable of the seeds. And then what happens? He circles right back around, and he ends up at the same spot trying to act the same way to me. I've noticed it with unbelievers because they're not rooted in Christ. So even though I'm giving them truth and it sets them free in a small degree, and it's nothing from me because the truth will set you free, Like Jesus said, they're set free for a few days, but because they're not rooted in Jesus themselves, they end up right back to who they are. And again, I battle these dudes, Brandon. Oh, I'm not even joking. Everywhere I go, for some reason, they just come to me. And I'm done being nice because Jesus wasn't nice. Christians aren't called to be nice and love everyone and just accept everything. For me, it's the complete opposite. You're supposed to call out wickedness. And yes, do I pray for this dude? I do. Because again, I see he's suffering. I see the bondage he's stuck in, that self perpetuating, poor me, victim, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't have time to play people's games anymore. I'll try to lift them up. But Brandon, when I tell you this dude stole my phone, I know he did. It was in the truck. He steals my phone. 2 weeks later in the morning, he goes, "Oh, we're going back to that house. Maybe you'll find your phone." Randomly. What happens? The boss pulls the phone. "Oh, I found your phone back." I'm like, dude, you think I grew up in the hood. Like, I know when people are being, when you're speaking in guile, like I see what's going on. You can't pull things over on people like Brandon and I who are walk in the spirit. Why? Because sometimes we know things before they even happen. I don't care how it sounds, delusional, schizophrenic. I hear and see everything. I know when people are coming at me with not good intentions. And if I get that vibe in my spirit, I listen and watch everything you say, because the truth is people will tell you the truth right out of their own mouth if you listen. Hey, and the other thing I want to say, and then you can start, is that it's like, again, and I'm guilty of it too. We all love Christ. We all want it done right. We do care about one another's salvation. But again, the church is so divided, like over things that, I mean, we're not God, and nobody is. Nobody is more favored than the other. Like, if you believe in Jesus, you're saved. You're in his family. You're in the ecclesia. Let's come together for once. Like, again, and nobody's even willing to help one another. Like, if you ain't willing to help other Christians who are speaking truth, who are doing ministry, if you ain't even helping the church, you're not going to help the homeless guy, the stranger. Like, it's just a fact. I see it every day, dude. And again, I'm just at a point, like, I haven't even podcast because I don't know. People just, everything's taken the wrong way. We can't have a conversation. We can't disagree with still loving one another. And it's exhausting, dude. It's like, I'd rather just be all right and live my days out until the end comes. Because again, with the AIs, it's coming. They're getting ready to say checkmate, even though we know we already won. They think they're still going to win. And people still just living life, hoarding money, hoarding things. Like, give some away. Like, again, yesterday I finished work. I worked. I had to deal with a bunch of stuff. They worked me to the ground. I'm not going to get into a big headache. They hate my light, so it's like, let's punish Cliff. The addict that was working with us screwed them last Saturday, so now we're going to screw Cliff, even though he shows up every day. When I was in the Uber, the guy was listening to some praise music. He's an Uber driver. I gave him $20, buy dinner. Again, I'm going to lose my treasures in heaven. But again, it's simple acts. Do I have $20 to give a random Uber driver? I really don't. I'm losing my house. But at the end of the day, I made his day. He's going to be able to buy food. It's $20. I don't care. It's not going to make or break my situation. Like, help each other more. Help people like Brandon who are speaking the truth. You know how hard it is to get on here and speak the truth about the U.S. government? To call out true wickedness in high places of the mighty men. He does it every week, fearlessly. No support, little support. Like, at least support Christians who are moving their feet like Brandon and spreading truth. And
or they're willing to put their face out there. And I had a lady that's saying, like, I would like to share more. I said, but my family, blah. And you know how they would perceive that. And she's writing this in the comment. I'm over here like, Christ, I think it was Matthew 10:37. You who love your family or friends, but more than me, is not worthy of me, God's word. That's what the
Yep.
Son is saying. You're not worthy of God's word. What? And the word is what gives you life. If you're so paranoid and worried about what your friends and family are going to say, you'll on social media, Medea, social illusions. This is not real. It's fake. It's literally in the name. If you are going on a platform and then you're putting up content or you're resharing something that somebody else said, but you're over here going, oh crap, now you're making me uncomfortable. What are you doing? You are shaking the sleeping embers off of them. That's what you're called to do. So if you weren't able to do it yourself, but somebody else already did it for you and they're willing to do that for you, support them. Oh, I'm too scared. Well, dude, doesn't Christ say a lot of stuff about that? Like the servant that didn't, he's like, I was scared. I didn't want to use my talent. That's you. Oh,
Yes.
crap. Yeah, that parable, that's you. And then when I'm reading the parable of the sower, I see you guys now. I'm able to start pinpointing, like, okay, this sounds like you. I told my buddy, I said the other day, eventually I had to block him. I said, you're reminding me of Ananias and Sapphira. I said, just give up your money and put it towards ministry. He's like, I'm not giving all my money to you. I didn't say me. Ministry. In some
Yep.
way, shape, or form, relook at how you see your money and how you can start fueling the mission of the church. And he's like, well, I don't like that you're calling me Ananias and Sapphira. Oh, gosh, dude. Like, read the story, because the fact that I just gave a reference and now you're getting upset as opposed to why would you say that? And I explained in voice, I said, I explained to you why I said that. But because you read it, he told me he read it instead of listened. I said, I was giving tonality for reasons.
Mm.
But people don't bother to do that, dude. They're too lazy. And for me, like you said, it's easier now just to hit block and live my life than to have to, like I'm losing brain cells trying to explain it to you. Because the biggest thing with us, unless you start reading what I've read or you start investing in what I'm recommending, we're never going to see the world the same way. You're just going to ask questions and argue, and you might be asking it because you're not really willing to evolve. They did that a lot with Christ. He's like, I'm just going to walk away. It's
Yep.
not worth my energy.
And what did he do? He went to the wilderness and prayed. I have to do that on a regular basis, walking on this path. Why? Because the people who don't understand the spiritual war, who they speak about Christ, but they've never experienced the Holy Spirit. How
Mm,
could you teach on something if you've never been led by the Spirit? If you've never really experienced Jesus as the Holy Spirit, I mean, what are you teaching on?
right.
And again, Brandon and I, we seen the truth. God opened our eyes. And again, it's not because we're great. We would just who will we send? And Brandon and I had something in us, and many others. It said, send me, Lord. I will
Mm,
walk it. I will fight this path regardless of what happens. And that's fine. If you want to be a sideline Christian, fine. But, show some grace to the guys and the girls who are out here fighting the battle day in and day out, going without food.
mm,
Like, this isn't easy. You know what I mean? There's constant struggle. And then on top of it, you have the struggles of the regular life, and then you have everything on top of it trying to do kingdom work. And telling you, when you start truly walking in truth and doing kingdom work, Brandon could tell you, any other disciple of Jesus could tell you, it only gets harder.
yeah.
Life doesn't get easier because you've accepted Jesus. What I've experienced is the opposite. It gets way harder. Because again, those people filled with demons, these NPCs, demonically oppressed people with the demonic mindset, I'm telling you, they're attracted to us. They
Mm,
constantly try to break us. I experience it every day, man. But
same, man.
again, I have people like Brandon who we lift each other up because that's what we're called to do. But what are we getting on today?
So this one I have covered it briefly before. You might have seen it when you watched the show that I was doing with the agnostic guy. Agnostic is what I'm gonna call him. um, and in part, I kind of wanted to redo this one. Originally, this was known as like Reading the Rainbow. I've adapted a few things here and there. Because I'm reading a lot as of late, and I'm trying to help people understand Mark of the Beast and how to further solidify my hunches, right? And I'm researching this stuff and I'm connecting the dots of people we know in history, but now we're kind of unpacking. It's like, all right, you shoved all the important parts of history of who these people are connected to, what they did behind closed doors. We kind of shoved it in the closet, and now I'm saying, but what's in that closet? And opening the closet, and it all comes piling out. And in turn, asking ourselves the question as Christians: why did they create evolution? Why was there the need for C19 in 2020? Where are we going with this? Do we know? And I think most people, they have a rough sketch, but I just kind of wanted to hone in specifics. And so, the evolution of eugenics from Malthusian theory, eugenics to transhumanism. And as you
Mm.
can see here, there's a thumbnail of a lot of individuals doing some semi-Masonic poses, at least for three definitively, and an individual that a lot of people are not aware of, that we'll touch on as we continue. Wasn't as usual for most of my thumbnails, but what do you think? Think it'll work?
It works. It looks serious.
It looks serious. I'm hoping. I'm hoping. I'm not sure if thumbnails are like half the. It's like an appetizer on a menu when you go into the restaurant. I
Yeah.
kind of like the way that one looks. I'll get some of that, you know. So as I was telling for this kid during the show, I said that he didn't like it too much when I was saying that Masons are bad guys. He's like, oh wait, my dad's a Mason, so why are you saying this? This is like so hard for me now to hear. I don't want to talk to you. And again, he does the hush pose. He's doing the sign of the devil. He was a 33-degree Freemason. And again, this is Anton LaVey, the guy that wrote the Satanic Bible, doing the gesture of illustrating what is the curse of Satan. And then he also even says, well, if I wanted to do a curse on the crowd, I would fan out the two fingers, the pinky and index, and point them towards the crowd. Now everybody's like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. Well, Taylor Swift does that a lot during her shows. Whether it means something, it's just artistic. Nah, she rolls her eyes when God's mentioned at Grammys and Oscars and all that stuff. But she does that a lot during her shows. And then he reports of like people are claiming they have amnesia after they're done with a Taylor Swift concert. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe, maybe not. But we wrestle not against flesh and blood, and we know that these people tap into stuff, putting people under an illusion, right?
Mm.
They're stars, they're celebrities. Be not like the pagans who look to the stars or in awe and wonder of them. Now, stars are supposed to be an equivalent of angels, right? And we always put an angel or star atop of our Christmas tree. We've covered that multiple times. But now you're doing the same thing. You have stars on your screen, celebrities, live live TV, reality TV, right? Reality, and it's an illusion. All of it's mostly script for
It's
the
all
most part.
fake.
Yeah. And they're telling you it's reality. It's gaslighting you even in the title. But you're looking to stars, their proxies, their representatives, their disciples, if you will. You're looking to them and you're in awe and wonder of them. Fanatic, right? You're a fan? Fanatic. That's what that word stems from. You're a crazy cuckoo person because this person is more important than yourself.
Mm.
You not kind of see that in our culture today, Cliff? Like, again, anarcho, I'm against authority. So you could say the same thing in celebrity worship. Did you want an authority figure, or you saying, hey, I like a hero. I want a hero to represent us. Wow. So you want a hero, a king, a prince. Somebody has to be the hero of the story. This is constantly what we're living in our today's society.
And the thing is, again, American Christians will go, well, what does that matter? Well, if somebody's in front of you putting up that hand gesture in their mind and soul, putting black magic on you, when I see it, I pray. I
Yeah.
pray protection over me around the people. I mean, this is a spiritual war. Again, you could pretend it's not, but that's what they believe it is, and they're in full war. They're in full combat against us. And
Right.
if you can't see it, how are you gonna use prayer in the word to combat it? You ain't gonna. You're gonna fall into their mesmerizing beauty, or charismatic, you know what I'm saying? Like, people just fall right in because they're perfect in the eyes of worldly people, but they ain't. They're
Right.
broken.
As long as the world likes the way that I look, and hence why social media. It's an illusion. Medea. It's not real. Social. This is not real. Your social visual is not real. This is
Mm.
why I'm kind of chuckling at some of these like tradwife accounts. Well, it's nice, and I think their sentiments are right. I notice their followers keep going up and up and up, and they're saying, "I'm looking for a man of God," but blah 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 blah. It's like, Do you read your comment sections? You got over like 14, 15, 20. Oh, wow. You got like almost 100 bids and you're still single and you're still utilizing this now for a content pump out machine. You know what I'm saying? Like there's something wrong here.
Yep.
There's something wrong here. Are you starting to like your intentions sound good, but you're putting it out for the wrong reason? Anyways, Thomas Malthus, he was an individual, gave us the Malthusian Theory. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard of it, but I don't know exactly.
Again, people want to reference. Highly recommend sharing it with your friends and family. This is what Bill Gates and a lot of the other guys, they're following what he believes. I'm just going to read some highlights here. Malthusian theory was given in 1798 and explains how an unchecked population of growth leads to poverty and misery. In essence, okay, if we keep getting more and more people, we won't be able to provide for all of them economically. So if they can't afford economically to feed and sustain themselves, then we're going to have an issue of maintaining life and the human race. Okay, so you're telling me economy-wise, right? He's like a social economist. So laws of growth, the population would grow faster than the food supply. So you're populating like right. So this is like the antithesis of what Christ said, to go forth and multiply. This guy's saying, no, we need to put a cap on that. So your carbon footprint, this is where this kind of thinking stems from. The population growth and its geometric progression, as it will explain later on, and food supplies and the arithmetic of progression is saying basically if we keep getting so many people, there's going to be a shorter abundance of resources to sustain all of society. So that was his theory. A lot of people are arguing and pressing back. Other people say he has some merit. Even with every theory, I think there is potential merit, but what he's potentially suggesting is that we need to start regulating how we reproduce. Well, isn't it tragically ironic that we have a lot of women that are over here cheering that we're on a population decline? It's like, well, in 15, 20 years, 30 years maybe, you're going to be approaching nursing home status. You're not going to have a kid to take care of you. You've been kept adopting dogs and cats for the last 15 to 20 something years. And you're not going to have other mothers that are producing kids that are going to be able to take care of you. So what's going to happen? It's not going to be like what it was over in China, where they're having like the two children policy. You're not going to have anybody there at the end because you're following a theory like this. So again, another assumption in this theory is that land is limited. That's a lie.
BS.
We always have plenty of resources, just enough what God sustains us. Law of diminishing returns to agriculture and human beings driven by natural instincts. And in closing, technology remains unchanged. Now, this was before they created the idea of like refrigeration foods. I think the Napoleonic War was helping with that. How to like store it in tin cans, store your food in a refrigeration like capacity, whether it's putting it in the ground or something like that, and you're able to access it still, but in a cooling sense, so you can keep the food for a longer preservative time. He was over here saying, well, we don't have that ability because this is again before it happened. He's over here saying, okay, so if we don't have a way of keeping food longer and we don't have a means of producing more food, well, we won't be able to keep up with the population rise. So he's over here saying, this is my fear. I don't think that's a fear. If anything, I think this is controlled opposition, as I'm going to outline. I think this is controlled opposition trying to already stoke the flames or spark that eventually gives way to somebody like Darwin and eventually to somebody with eugenics. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the population control, where I grew up, I seen hundreds, maybe even low thousands of people who were addicted to drugs. They did it in everywhere, Philly, New York, all the blue-collared cities. They killed off a lot of people with drugs. Now what I'm seeing is, again, and this is no knock against Indians, it just is what I see.
Right.
They're filling now the population so destroyed in America because they poisoned them through pharmaceuticals, street drugs that the government brought in. It's a fact.
Yep.
And now they're just repopulating with Indians who love the system. They love their
Right.
Tesla. They're going to work in the system. They think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and they're just going to step right in, and they are, and they're going to follow suit. I see it. Not that I have a problem with people coming here. I don't. People can live wherever they want. But what I'm seeing is you don't see any out here. I don't see all the children are from India. Every one of them, whole neighborhoods. And it's like, well, where are the children?
Yeah.
And people don't talk about it, but I seen hundreds of people that I knew, that I grew up with, die. They died.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened everywhere. But I don't know, that's a little side rant, but
well, that's kind of been my argument. I know a lot of it's kind of out of left field, but it's kind of what I call the Gordian knot of economics. It's like, okay, so currency basically creates caste systems. What did you just say about the Indian people? Caste system. Well, why do you think they favor this? Because money determines your value in society, your Tesla, your bank account, your extra property. The issue that I had at the cafe, the guy was Indian. It is all about reputation and looks and prestige. Hence why he got a little upset when I said, I thought you were a bitter man of integrity. I'm the most integrity man you've ever met. Don't say that about me. I'm like, no, I can say whatever I want to. Because right now, from our discussion, you look like a guy that cares more about economics and turnover rates at your freaking cafe than you care about other individuals' lives and the issues that they're going with. Right? It corrodes your conscience. Currency. The tribes were able to get. They had wampum, and I'm going to touch that on another episode with you. They didn't need money. It was an exchange. It was a contract, right? You didn't need it for the tribes of Israel when they were first getting started, right? 40 years running around the wilderness. You think they're walking around? Cash is king. No, Christ is king. They're not thinking like that. Animals, like, what does he say about the sparrow? He doesn't think about the next day and stuff like that. He just does his thing. This is how a Christian should be responding. Yes, it's Caesar's world. Here's his stupid money. Right? That's the way we should be perceiving the money. Instead, a lot of people, they hoard it. It's like, well, I have my own private property. I have my own, I have this much in savings. Okay. Isn't it ironic they call it savings? Saving souls, saving money. What are you investing in? Yeah. I find a lot of this terminology makes me start rethinking how I'm saying something these days. I try my best to kind of reincorporate what I should be saying. Anyways, so I'm not a proponent of Christmas. You know this. However, I do like sometimes watching the Muppets A Christmas Carol. It's stupid. It's silly. It's heartwarming. Especially watching Michael Caine playing Ebenezer Scrooge. Well, the author, Charles Dickens, he had a beef with Thomas Malthus thinking. And I'm going to outline this. And again, next time you watch it, this is a trivia moment to nudge your family member and say, oh, wow, Brandon told me about this thing. So it's funny that everyone has seen A Christmas Carol 964 times, maybe more for some people. But in 2025, when this was made, half the country still thinks that Tiny Tim is the problem and not Scrooge.
No way.
Or aren't we passing legislation to making being homeless illegal? Right? And we're over here saying, no, Babylon Musk, Jeff Bezos, name your billionaire, trillionaire, I don't give a crap. They mean nothing to me. But you're over here saying they're the good guy. But the immigrant, he's the one causing the problem. This one, he's the one raising my medical bills. This one is the one. The Vatican could give up all of its money tomorrow and probably solve world hunger, but they don't do that. Most of these billionaires, they could give up 2/3 of what they currently have wealth-wise, but they don't want to do that. And instead, you're over here worshiping them like they're the best thing ever. So while you hate the system and you verbally condemn it, you support it. Every time you write a comment defending it, the oppression. So Charles Dickens' Ebenezer Scrooge was inspired by a mix of real historical figures, a famous cemetery visit, and Dickens' own personal history and views. The gravestone misinterpretation. While visiting in Edinburgh's Canongate Kirkyard in 1841, Dickens reportedly saw the gravestone of Ebenezer Lennox Scrooge. I'm not sure if that's correct with the last pronunciation of his name. The stone identified Scrooge as a mealman, a grain merchant, but Dickens misread it as a mean man and believed the individual's life was wasted on greed. So again, the guy who provides bread, but he's trying to make a profit as opposed to just giving it to people that are in need, right? Real life misers. The character was also modeled after the notable British misers, such as the MP and the eccentric John Elwes and Gloucester banker named Jemmy Wood. Social and economic influences. Scrooge reflects the callous utilitarian economic views of thinkers like Thomas Malthus, representing a society that ignored the poor and the vulnerable. So basically, the pre-Darwinian theory, laissez-faire, may the strong endure. That's kind of what his thinking, economically speaking, was inspired by. Personal experience, the author fraught relationship with his father, whose financial struggles sent young Dickens to a shoe blacking factory, heavily influences Scrooge's character. Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in 1843 to critique Victorian social inequality and Malthusian economic theories. Wow, so you're telling me that Thomas Malthus had an influence on Victorian society? I think we should look into that, considering that's imperialism that went all over the world. While drawing on his own childhood trauma of poverty to champion empathy, philanthropy, and the humanization of the working class. Again, you don't get a working class without currency. I was just reading a thing of the other day. I'm not sure if you saw my short clip, the Haymaker Massacre, 1886. Albert Parsons, and he wrote a book called Anarchism, Its History and Scientific Principles, as written by some of its apostles. He's over here breaking it down for me, dude, and it kind of hit me with hard, saying that the elites, 16 years post the Civil War, were going, it took $1,000 a year, roughly, to maintain a slave. Whereas if we do wagedom, we could give them $850 and they're not going to complain. And on top of that, that $850 that we give them, they have to give it right back to us in order to sustain their lives. So in essence, we'll save $150 per year on a wagedom scale, as opposed to actually having to maintain a slave. Because again, the slave is not being paid. So if the slave doesn't get paid, you don't create a system of dependency. So why don't we just make it $850? That's capitalism. Well, Brandon, no, I'm just saying that freaked me out reading this, going, like, I knew it, but this is somebody that's there. That made so much more sense. And what does it do? Creates a caste system, a working class. Now it's making me understand a lot of the early, like the New Left Democrats and stuff like that, where they're saying, I'm against war, I'm against oppressing the working class. I'm like, again, they were simply advocating we want an 8-hour workday, because you're making us work these crazy hours just to sustain our basic lives. And most of them were saying we just don't want a government to enforce it. Hence, the unions started to form, and this is why you get an 8-hour workday. Now you're forcing yourself to work so much because they raise everything so high, right? Isn't that sad, dude? That money is now blinding your incentive. Even with Sabbaths, too, right? Now I got to work on Saturday. Now I got to do it. No. But they're forcing you to such an extent that you're over here saying, I'm dependent on currency over Christ.
Hey, can I just say too, like, and again, the walk that I walk, many aren't gonna understand, and I don't care. I answer to God. So, but it's funny because people will. I hear some of the reggae artists talking about that. They'll try to control you through your wallet, and that's the thing. Like, even at the job I'm at now, I know he's the boss. He makes the decisions. And I'm not going to get into it all, but what I'm going to say is he knows that at the end of the day, if he tries to corrupt me morally or make me do things that I won't do, I'm walking. I already made it clear. I need the money, but it doesn't rule my life. I am not going to go against my Christian values for money. I'm just not. I'll go suffer. I'll go without. I've done it, and when people realize you can't be controlled by money, they fall in line. Again, like you said, he needs me to work. I'm a young, hardworking man. He's going to pay me a wage. That's where I'm keeping it. You're giving me money. I'm giving you my time and labor. But the other stuff, I'm not playing those games, man. I'm done playing worldly man ego, greed, money, games. I'm not playing them. I'm done.
That was the other thing. I think it was Lewis Mumford, but I was reading it in a Neil Postman book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. He was saying, like, the invention of the clock, now we are slaves to the clock. I was like, you're right, because before it was like, I'll work whenever I want to start working during the day. Now it's like, no, you need to get up at 9. You need to do this till 5. You need to, and it's like, well, great. Now I'm a slave to a little invention that, while yes, it might be, helping me keep a organization, it's also making you conflicted. Like, I have to keep going back into work from this time to that time, as opposed to, oh, you have to leave early to pick up your daughter. Oh, you have to do, right? Now it's forcing you to ruin your the normalness of what life used to be before currency became the predominant factor. And again, love of money is the root of all evil. You push money so much that's what everybody strives for. And again, it's a pyramid scheme, hence the eye at the top. It's the eye at the top. It's like, oh yeah, we'll tell you, this is what you want. This is what you want to strive for. And it ends up drowning you.
And if you don't learn to get rest in Jesus or in nature and find ways to step out of that spiritually for your nervous system, you'll be drained. That's why most people are depressed, anxious, stressed. Like, you need to make that time to reset the nervous system, to get grounded in Christ by the word, by prayer, through other disciples. Or you're going to be burnt out. And Brandon knows. He goes through it every day. I go through it too. You still get tired trying to run this race.
Especially alone, dude. That's what's pissing me off. It's like, we read that verse in Genesis, not good for man to be alone. And then it's like, how come most of our options are single mothers that have 2 to 3 plus kids, or they've had 2 to 3 plus exes that they've already slept with, or they're like a dog mom, or they're still stuck in that 2-party paradigm? It's like, that's the average person that I have to go on a date with. That's kind of sad. And most of them are getting past, like, you can't have kids after a certain amount of time. It's like, so no wonder, I would want somebody younger, because I don't want to marry somebody where I never have a potential of having kids. I want to have kids. That's natural for a guy. And that's now suddenly deemed, oh, that's weird. No, it's like, I'm running out of options, and I want somebody that semi cares about their purity. That's wrong? No, that's not wrong. That's completely normal. Unfortunately, we're living in a society, snakeology, technology, snake, teke means snake. We're living in a world that everybody's gravitating towards snakeology. And I'll close with this, and then we'll go back. I found it interesting, dude, that since the Garden of Eden, Satan went after the woman, trying to say, you're not happy, you're not satisfied with your situation, right? You're not happy with where you're currently at. Let me give you an offer. That's kind of what technology is doing.
Don't you want more? You deserve it.
Right. Make you second guess, and then seek virtual validation. And now they're saying they're not happy, or I want the toxic guy. And it's over here going, see, you literally had paradise. And you said, no, I want to see what else is potentially available. It's like, I hate to say it, dude. I'm not looking for romance now at this point. I'm just looking for consistency and character. That's what I'm looking for. It's like, romance is nice, but at this point, I don't want to put that as the prequel of what I want as a standard in the relationship. So we have to, and unfortunately, as men of God, that's what you have to start doing, and you're going to be ridiculed for it. But it's like, no, I have a standard now that I have to adhere to, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a dictator in the home. I'm just trying to do the man of God thing here, and sometimes that requires being a little bit harsh, I guess you could say.
So anyways, and let me just say one quick thing real quick, and you nailed it. I used to be drawn to women by the flesh. That's what everything I did when I wanted a woman was because how she looked.
Right.
But now that I've been celibate 5 years and that doesn't rule me, I'm not saying I don't have spurts of lust because I'd be lying. I do, but it doesn't rule me. So now I don't see the outside of the woman. How do you act? What are your beliefs? What do you have faith in? That's what's beautiful to me. I could care less what the outside looks like. I was in New Hampshire. This girl sits down. She was gorgeous. Her breasts were everywhere. But I'm thinking, like, you're a grown woman. You put your titties away. Like, no one cares, dude. What else do you have to offer but those? Nothing. You're shallow and like you got nothing to offer but those beautiful brown eyes. Like, I'm all set. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good.
Exactly, man. Yeah. All right, well, let's not get too much in tangents. Anyways, inspirations was his childhood trauma. Dickens' father was sent to a debtor's prison, forcing the young Charles to work at a boot blacking factory. This experience instilled a lifelong empathy for the poor and a disdain for the social indifference. The Hungry Forties, Dickens was deeply moved to visit the Manchester in 1843, where he witnessed the bleak condition of child laborers and industrial workers. The Tiny Tim character was directly inspired by Dickens' disabled nephew Henry, which heightened his awareness of the struggles placed on families. Now, like his critiques were against Malthusian economics. Dickens explicitly attacks the cold-hearted theories of Thomas Malthus, who argued against the state relief for the poor, right? Which, again, I can see what he's saying. Personally, I think that's kind of what Christians were doing during the Roman Empire. I'm not sure. Again, I'd have to look a little bit more into that. I don't think Rome had exactly welfare programs for a good chunk. Yes, there was some communal options, but as for a welfare distribution from the state, I would say it's not too often of a thing. And so I can understand that critique. But the thing is, do we really need, in order to create an institution that's going to take care of the poor, do we really need to create the institution that's going to take care of the poor, or we just do it? Oh, yeah. You don't need to create regulation, bureaucracy in order to just take care of the poor. As Albert J. Nock, our enemy of the state, he was writing that within the first 2 to 3 pages. I was like, oh, I got to already highlight that. He was saying that that's what most people do is like, well, I'll walk past the poor guy today because there's already a state program that's going to take care of him, right? And that was, I think, when he wrote that was late 1890s, early 1920s. Anyways, so he argued against state relief for the poor. This is best seen when Ebenezer Scrooge uses Malthusian language, stating, quote, that the poor should die to decrease the surplus population. So basically, in order to keep the economy at a stable level, we need to get rid of the undesirables because they're basically breeding like rats. Again, a lower currency. So basically, money, like they wrote the U.S. Constitution. Charles Beard looked that up, Economic Interpretation of the United States Constitution. You could not have a place of representation, right? You couldn't be in a elected office unless you had money or property. That's the way they framed that Constitution. And property included meant slaves. So I can't run for office. Do we not see that still today? Oh, this doctor so-and-so is going to run for this. Oh, this, business guy from Florida, he's going to run for this. The pattern does not really change, dude. It's always the business guy that's going to be in the office that's supposed to represent people that are the working class. You're not me. You're not going to represent me. You're always going to be bought out like a political prostitute because you care more about corporations' interest over your constituents' issues, right? Every single time. So the institutional neglect, the ghost of the Christmas present, reveals 2 starving children beneath his robes named ignorance and want. We never see that in the movies, do we? Dickens warns society of the catastrophic future that awaits a nation that neglects the education and welfare of the poor. That's not just Dickens, that's the Bible as well. Selfish capitalism. Dickens critiques the capitalist mindset that the measures for human worth strictly through profit and business utility. Basically, like I said before, you're only perceiving every interaction with me through a material lens of what you can get out of this exchange. Like you just said, my integrity, my honor is worth more than the paycheck. I can walk away at this point. That's honesty, honor. That's where that etymology comes from. You would rather stay by that than, okay, I'm going to sell my soul and compromise my values for money. No. How many people are willing to say I can walk away? God will provide. Yeah. It scares people though, but this is it, dude. Yep. The cultural impact and resources, public reception. The text was published on December 19th of 1843 and became an instant success that helped revive interest in holiday charity. Now, granted, now we have this whole thing, and I was thinking about this as I was trying to sleep last night. I suffer from extreme summer insomnia. It's sucky. But you have that song, if every day was just like Christmas, if every day people were just like Christians, take
Mm.
away the Christmas thing.
Yes.
That's what Christians are supposed to be. What a wonderful world this would be, right? Demanding the Impossible was a book or a slogan that was chanted around by anarchist circles in France. Demanding the Impossible, 1968. And I said, this is what Christians are. We're demanding the impossible. We're behind enemy lines, but something's different about you people. Saints, set apart from the rest of the world. You're here, you're in society, but what is different about you? It's not regulated to Christmas. It's every day was just like a Christian. What a wonderful world this would be. Like they were saying in the early Rome. If more Christians would just join the Roman legionnaires, Rome would not start falling as it is. If more people became Christians, we have no need for wars,
Mm.
was the response. That is what we're looking at here. Granted, was that his intent? Don't know, but at least it prompted at least a day out of 365 to have some compassion on your fellow human beings. And
Mm.
again, going against a guy that's emphasizing the benefits and incentives of an upper class. Now, Thomas Malthus, he was born 1766, died 1834, was an influential British economist. Fun fact, Mercury is the god affiliated with economy, and Mercury is an equivalent of Hermes, who is known as the god of trade, and Hermes is an equivalent of Nimrod's son, Tammuz. So every time now I see this, like, this is the economist for blah, 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 blah. I don't care if he's left, right, libertarian, fill in the blank. This is where, again, it comes to the Gordian knot. You're arguing from the left perspective how to use the money. You're arguing from the right perspective how to utilize it for, big government, corporations, and stuff like that. Whereas you got the middle guy, the Christian, going, you guys are doing it wrong. You're going too far to the left. You're going too far to the right. How about we get rid of the economy? Why don't we just get rid of the thing that's constraining us and filtering our view for how we're supposed to be focusing on humanity? You, Marxist, Democrat, Socialist, Liberal, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm just get rid of money. I wrote a comment the other day, dude, and I said money's an illusion. No, it's a tool. No, you're the tool. They're using you. Because if you didn't use it, or we all just not simultaneously said money's not real and just decided, you know what, I'm not going to agree that this has any value. It's ink on paper. It's not silver and gold. No, I'm not saying that. I don't want you to invest in silver and gold, right? This is the beauty of that whole interaction and that song that was written in for Sunday school for kids. Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have I will give. And then it, right? Silver and gold. I don't have the materialism, people, but I have a gift from the Holy Spirit. I'm going to give you the ability to walk. Well, no, you took away my means for begging. Well, like I got in what Life of Brian. No, it's like that. You're not focused on the stupid things. Like, what can I help you on your everyday thing? That's how I'm viewing this world. I don't have materialism. In contrast, this guy, or economics, that's what they focus on. We can fix the world, society, this issue, that issue, if we focus on the money. So you're focused so much now on the money and your earthly news, breaking news, instead of the gospel, which is the good news. So he was an Anglican cleric. He was a pastor. He is best known for his pessimistic, which is kind of interesting for most Christians, shouldn't be so pessimistic, and highly controversial theories on population growth and resource scarcity. His ideas formed the exact economic philosophy that Charles Dickens was protesting when he wrote A Christmas Carol. When he, unreformed, Ebenezer Scrooge callously argued that the poor die and decrease the surplus of the population. Charles Dickens utilized Thomas Malthus's theory of population growth to solve the mechanism behind biological evolution and natural selection. In 1838, after returning from his voyage on the HMS Beagle, Darwin read Malthus's essay on the principle of population. Oh. While Malthus focused on human society, Darwin realized the mathematical principle applied even more fiercely to the natural world, where species have no artificial checks on reproduction. So one was already applying it on the human scale. Now he's out here trying to apply it on the animal scale species. Now we have a thing called laissez-faire capitalism. It's the same thing, just a different variation. As well, Charles Darwin adds to the thing that evolution. You had a dog eat dog, like it was man against man, caveman, ooga ooga, slaughter everybody. Peter Kropotkin brings up the concept of mutual aid, whereas like there's a lot of species that work together because it benefits them if they work together to prolong life.
Mm.
And that's common very frequently in the animal kingdom. And if somebody's being a douche, and he kept referring to Sparrow, so I was writing a whole bunch of notes like Sparrow again. This was reminding me of that story with Christ. Oh, Sparrow again, right? And he said that there's a lazy sparrow because every year when the sparrows come back, they usually will nest in their usual spot. But if there's this little lazy sparrow and he tries to steal somebody else's sparrow, he'll get boycotted by the rest of the community of sparrows. And I was going, huh. So you could do that in society, right? You're being a lazy person, so we're all not going to contribute to you, right? You're not going to be part of the family because you're causing a disruption. You're being lazy with how you're trying to do it. We don't have a problem with you having a home or building a wigwam, but it's the way you're going about it. You're stealing it off of somebody else, right? So where Darwin and Malthus diverged, while Malthus inspired Darwin, their ultimate conclusions were fundamentally opposite. Malthus viewed overpopulation as a tragic dead end. He believed it was a static, unsurmountable law of nature meant to cause suffering, punish the poor, and prevent human progress. So as opposed to saying, you know what, I think those that hoard all the wealth are the problem, it's like, if we keep creating poor people, the poor people will never amount to anything. So wouldn't it be better to just kind of off them off at the beginning so they don't have to suffer through life? You're a cleric? Anyways, Darwin viewed overpopulation as a creative engine. He saw the brutal struggle of survival as the exact force that drives biological progress, adaptation, and the origin of an entirely new species. So he's over here saying, I don't think it's so bad, but wouldn't that kind of create the incentive for something that's suffering to become creative so that they can evolve? Right? So if you're in a bad predicament and you could go really dark with this, like you could say the Hunger Games. The strong will survive at the end of the movie or whatever it is, right? After you're done with the trial. But you have to think of ingenuity ways of how to take out your enemy, whether that's using camo, whether it's getting to a high location, whether it's, outsmarting them with something or other. He's over here saying there's a benefit to this. If we just learn how to control the mechanisms. Purge, right? Do you see these kind of things in the movies? Where do you think again, I could be wrong, but just
somebody is thinking about this stuff. Again, that stuff came from somebody's mind. Same thing with horror movies. That's why I don't watch them. I never liked them, but somebody had that sick vision in their mind, and they're sick. They're demonically oppressed.
Exactly, my friend. So the social impact and the controversy. Malthus used his theory to oppose the government aid to the poor, such as the Great Britain's Poor Laws. He argued that giving charity or financial relief to impoverished families only allowed them to have more children, which would artificially expand the population, worsen food shortages, and ultimately prolong their misery. We need to cut that food SNAP benefit program, man. We're only causing problems with nothing new under the sun, man. The laissez-faire, survival of the fittest stance heavily influenced Victorian social policy, leading to the creation of dreaded, intentionally harsh workhouses designed to deter people from seeking aid. Wow. Just work harder. Work a little harder. You'll have a lot more, right? No. Putting you, it's again, this is what was having me when I was working in industry, dude. It says I'm dealing with childhood trauma and no one's ever here like explain to me what's wrong. Just work harder, Brand. Save more. Well, what am I saving for? Just work harder. When you figure it out, you'll have money. Then just so I'm working. I'm like inside my mind is corroding from depression and PTSD, and no one's having the answer. I had to take 4 to 5 months off just to process what I was going through. It was one of the best decisions of my life, dude. Because working in industry wasn't it. Almost caused me to take my own life. Do people care? Not really. Not most of them. But I needed to take that break because being put in this cycle, it does have an effect on some people. So
and could I just say real quick too? All the most management in these systems for big corporations, I've witnessed it. I've experienced it. They'll gaslight you. They'll try
Yep.
to make you like you're the bad person for calling out their wickedness. Again, they're in the system and they know it. I experienced that, Dean. Like they hated that I was praying for people in the hallways. They hated that I was calling out them treating the temporary workers who are mostly immigrants like trash.
Mm,
And somehow it became that I was unruly. It's like, no, I wasn't unruly, but I called out your wickedness.
yes.
So they lied upon me and got me fired. But it's everywhere. That's the system that you're speaking of that is pushed, and they know that's the system.
At my older job, there's a lot of immigrants there, and again, they're working crazy hours. And I was always the guy that would ask the question during like a team meeting or whatever it was, the most monthly things. And I remember one time, dude, he's the new manager guy. He's playing this clip on the board, and he says, in order to be a good employee, you don't talk bad about the company, blah 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 blah. And I'm thinking, what that projection? I said, that you gaslighting us. And at the end of it all, I just raised my hand. I said, yeah, that's all well and good. And I'm not saying that we disagree with any point of that film, but I said, most of us are dealing with inflation issues, and we're wondering when you guys are going to address that. Oh, the grimace he gave me, dude. Really? Because everybody was over here like, yeah, what he said. It's like, see, we have families. We don't really care about, your policies and complaining about the court. We're going to complain. We're poor. We're dealing with inflation issues. We would like to be compensated for our long hours here. Don't talk bad about the company. I asked it right in front of your face. That's a problem. That's a problem for them. And I can't help myself. They're saying, well, why don't you become one of the white shirts manager? I was like, do you realize I would get fired within like a week or two? It says because I speak on behalf of the guys sweating next to the machines, not for the guys that sit in the AC that call themselves engineers.
Yeah.
That's always been my mentality. Is like, well, you became liberal. No, again, calling out their wickedness apparently is a problem. It's like, this is not normal. This is not natural, and I don't like what you guys are doing. Well, you're not a team player. Yeah, team player. What incentives do you give me to be a team player?
Hey, I used to say it all the time at the team meetings. They would talk about how good our service was or the compliments. I'm like, so what? We're getting a bonus. And I said it so much that eventually they end up buying us barbecue. Like, here, we appreciate you so much. Here's some
Yep.
barbecue. I'm like, whatever. It
Here's a
is what
pizza.
it
Don't
is.
revolt.
Yeah.
Anyways, intellectual legacy. Despite his core flaws, Malthus's work had an enormous impact on other fields. Charles Darwin and Alfred Russell both read Malthus, realizing that the fierce competition for limited resources was his driving engine behind biological natural selection. So if we're all competing for resources, okay, well, I want the best job. I want to get a better raise, blah, 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 blah. So now you're having a tier system of hierarchy. Whereas before, again, without money, you didn't have necessarily a hierarchy in the tribe. Every woman was considered mother. Every man was considered a warrior. You didn't have a tier system of, you're better than me because you have more money and you have better than, no. We don't look at the world like that. This blows people's minds. I've been honestly, dude, I was praying to God. I said, I really want to read a book. Why did they feel the incentive, the Roman Empire, and thus that came after? Why did they want to get rid of the way of the tribes? When we came to America, why did we want to eliminate the tribes? Because tribal was normal. That
Mm.
was the way it was supposed to be. So I read Peter Kropotkin's books, Mutual Aid and the State and Its Origins, and it was like, God, thank you. Whoa, whoa, really shed some light on all of that. It's like, yeah, you had to get rid of the tribes because tribes equal independence. That's true freedom. You don't need money in order to operate. What? Yeah, just live off the land like we were supposed to post Eden. I always think about it, dude. What were we supposed to do? Just sit in Eden for the rest of our lives? No, we were supposed to go forth and multiply the earth. So continue Eden everywhere we go, and we maintain it. We take care of the animals. We take care of the garden, right? That was what it was probably supposed to be. And what are we doing? Now we're going to create cities. Libertas cities. Freedom cities. For your peace and safety. And what does it say? I was compiling a bunch of verses. I had them all written down. I was screenshotting them for my next presentation. One of them in Proverbs is saying the wealthy man, he stores up all of his wealth
Mm.
behind the fortified cities. I'm like, eh, eh. What did Christ say? lay up your treasures in heaven and Matthew to counter out that. We don't fortify things in cities. We don't care about hiding wealth down here. Our minds are set on things above. All of that is temporary. There are the shackles of the state. The wallet is a ball and chain. You have to carry around your ID, your local passport, right? Why? Because I need to know who you are. Most days I don't even know who I am. But don't worry, visually we know who you are. Flock cameras? Yeah, they don't care about you. They just care about your essence and if you're a threat to this system. Because the rich man is getting the money. It's like a cyclone. It's only going up.
Yep.
And it goes through any neighborhood and it destroys everything that it goes through. So Jane, the other thing was John Maynard Keynesian. I know he's part of the Keynesian economics. Credited Malthus with early insights into economic gluts and recessions. Now, resource scarcity, poverty, and social welfare. These are a couple added notes that I put in there. Malthus essentially argued that the increase in poverty was due to the fact of the poor procreating excessively. Does that not kind of sound like our modern world? Well, we're having too many people, so that's going to ruin the population, and we're having an influence on the environment, so we need to have less people so that the environment can sustain itself. What? You're basically saying I can't have kids because that's causing a problem to the resources? Yeah. Okay, so if I make that sacrifice, what good was that? Well, you helped the planet. What? It does, dude, like, it just boggles my mind that people are thinking that. He was a political economist and had ties working for the East India Tea Company. Now, from what I've been looking into, Washington and General Cornwallis, the guy on the other side of that whole battle of the Revolution, they both had ties to the East India Tea Company. Washington with making very major purchases in Virginia. And then you had Cornwallis post the Revolution. He was stationed in India for the East India Tea Company. I was like, okay, so you had ties with them because he was part of that college. Oh yeah, get this one. He worked at Haileybury College in Hertfordshire, England. Yeah, right? I was like, Haileybury? Wait a minute, isn't there a celebrity named Haileybury? 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 It's close enough, bro. I was just, again, probably somebody's going to pause and say, look, this is so stupid, Brandon's going on to a random diatribe. Has no connections whatsoever.
This is what's called using your mind and thinking things out and trying to figure out truth, not just going on everything you're told. And I love that about you. I love that you connect dots that most people can't connect because there is some truth in it. Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I did an interview with a guy and he was asking, like, he's noticing that a lot of people are, when they're talking about the conspiracy theory world and culture, they're never talking to the conspiracy theorists themselves. They're making hypotheses as to how somebody gets to that mentality. And I told him, I said, I don't know if it's so much conspiracy theorists as you could say like a social critic, an existentialist just asking, what is the purpose of life? Why are we doing these things to ourselves? What do I do to change it? What do I do to help convince people that we need to be the aspect of that change and not putting it onto some kind of institution? And I was trying my best. I'm not sure if anything resonated. I said, I know a lot of people like putting me into conspiracy theory. But then I was looking into this and I'm going to be making a short clip of it. The word conspiracy comes from the Latin conspirio, which means to breathe together. I don't know if that's so much a conspiracy. We all breathe together. But the thing is, when we're talking about elite corporations, that's a conspiracy. Corporations making deals with other corporations in order to make maximum profit off of the population. I think that's a thing. So that's conspiracy. No, you're thinking outside the box going, wait a minute, I don't think you care about me. There's no problem with saying that. And then again, it's just like a relationship. Oh, you think I don't care about you? You think I only married you for your money? Yes. Because you don't do this, you don't do that. You're like, I feel like you only want me to get a free meal for that or going out to dinner. You're not really giving me anything back in this exchange. So you're only perceiving me through an economic dollar sign, and you're not really seeing what is a potential thing long term. Does this guy have good character? You're looking at me for a meal ticket. Gold digger, if you will. That's a problem. And we shouldn't be looking at the world like that of what do I get out of you? It's, you know what? I see value in who you are, not your money, in who you are. That's what I invest in. And that's what we should be doing as an ecclesia.
What could we build together with Christ first?
Right. Christ at that. And again, dude, demanding the impossible. Everybody's like, you're dreaming of a utopia without money. Yes, with Christ, we don't need money, do we? We don't need institutions. We don't need a government, do we? We have Christ at the head. We have God's word. Well, we still have leaders in the Bible, yeah, but even as I was reading again, Musing Ourselves to Death by Neil Tospan, he was breaking out how, like, the concept of a chief a lot of times was to resolve disputes with proverbs and parables. King Solomon. And that's why when I get a big sub from Big Y, I said, give me the Solomon cut right down the middle. I always get a smile with that. But it's true, dude. It's like when you're looking at a lot of the stuff, the judges, what came at when the children were walking through the wilderness, you have Moses, disputes settler. And then you have the judges. It's like then you have, the prophets, the judges, like you were going to somebody to resolve the dispute. And then we even have that story with Christ talking about the widow and the judge was favoring somebody else until he's like, finally, this widow is so persistent. Fine, I'll concede. That's sometimes how you have to play the system, right? But it's the same concept, dude, where you're over here just saying, you know what? I'm looking at the end of the day how to settle my dispute with my brother. If I have an issue, I'm going to go first in person. Then I'll bring one other person with me before we go to what? A whole legality aspect. That's what it was supposed to be for Christians. How many do that today? Not many. Not many. And I don't think most pastors even know how to do that. And that's what we should be doing. Blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemaker is not a pistol with wearing a uniform or a badge. Peacemaker is what you do with your character. Like, okay, hold on. Before we blow this out of proportion, it could be as simple as, for you're using something in your personal life, you're settling a dispute with two girls on a soccer match. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Really? That's a peacemaker? Yeah. Do you know how to de-escalate a conflict? That's what a Christian should be focusing on. Anyways. So this started giving birth to the eugenics movement, and this individual is kind of important for that argument. So in the late 19th century, a critical time in the development of the sciences, British scholar Sir Francis Galton, in his book Inquiries into the Human Faculty and Its Development, coined the term eugenics. Galton, whose cousin was Charles Darwin, hoped to better humankind through the science of improving the human species by selectively mating people with specific desirable hereditary traits. Decades of research on controlled breeding. What relevance does this have to do with what you're So what did I just say? Darwin's saying, like, evolutionary wise, if we put something in a scarcity thing of resources, it's going to make them a better creature because they're adapting to their environment. Right? We see that a lot of times in sci-fi shows with movies or something like that. Like, oh, look, it's adapted. It's evolved into this state, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because it had to adapt. Pigs in the wild, when you set them free, they grow fur. This is the concept that he's inferring, but he's saying economically. Now, Galton is trying to even go further and saying, well, if we're having an issue with the population and we have inferiors and stuff like that, what if we started modifying them, right? We bring them up to a level where they could possibly sustain themselves. What are you talking about? Like creating superhumans? Oh, now that you mention it, what if we could create that? This godhood concept and start introducing it in all these superhero movies that we're being constantly bombarded with? Yeah. This is alchemy. This is what Masons believe. New Age, Ascension, just raise your mind to a higher frequency. This is the foundation of that stuff. So basically what he said is if we must breed, let us at least create superior beings. What did Satan say? I'll be like the God Most High in Isaiah. That's basically the concept that they're hitting here. And they're showing this tree of eugenics, right? The genetics, the psychology, the history, it has all the roots going down and stuff like that. And I says, like a tree of eugenics draws its materials from many sources and gives them the organic unity and purpose. Eugenics is the self-direction of human evolution. tree of life. And then you have what? Christmas trees, bale trees, tree of life, a mockery tree that you bring into your house every December 25th, based
Mm.
around the winter solstice, sun god, to ascend. You put an angel or a star atop of it. Your 666 Remphan star, yeah, and you can achieve your own, tree of life. You can do that over here. At the very top, we call it Corona, by the way, in Masonic Latin. We can do that with the yew tree. We don't need God anymore. Why? Because if we cut out the tongue of God, which is his son, we cut out the tongue of God, we don't need the creator that created everything and he spoke it into existence. We'll have all the alchemical secrets already at our disposal. Now we just got to get God out of the equation and we can ascend to become like him. And what is he utilizing this for his tools? Is he going to the birds? Is he going to the beasts of the sea and dry land? No. He's going after God's favorite creation, but he's experimenting on those animals, right? And they're experiencing things like the Tuskegee Airmen experiment, and they're experiencing with doing the black market thing of harvesting human organs. Why? Because they're trying to find the secret to immortality.
Mhm.
And they're taking a lot of people's lives and abusing nature in order to achieve those ends.
But
Yeah.
Brandon, that's not what Christmas means to me. But that's what it is, people. Enough with your
That's what it means to
excuses.
them. And again, as a Christian, what fellowship do we have with darkness? You can make that argument as the day is long, but this is what it means to the occult. So again, it was, as I covered in another episode, trees in Europe, those Christmas trees, you know what they were called, Cliff?
What's up?
Pyramids. I said we have a pyramid on the back of our dollar bill. At the top of that pyramid, we have an all-seeing eye, a corona. The angels might have looked like they had a whole bunch of eyeballs, according to some of the passages in Ezekiel. Maybe there's something there, guys. Well, you're making it up. Well, I made that other connection. Possible, not 100% proof, but you have the Druids in Egypt, essentially, the magicians, MAGA, duking out with Moses with the serpent staff, the Caduceus staff. And then they migrate, right? And eventually we get all the way over to St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland, the Druids. Maybe there's a little bit of a connection there. No, you're making that up. That's pseudo history. Why do they call it Hollywood? Connecting with the Druids again, and the stars again, with the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And their pentagrams. Look it up. Sigil of Ashtaroth connects to pentagrams. You really think at a certain point these people are still making things up? No, they know exactly what they're doing. Anyways, Francis Galton's hereditarianism condensed breakdown. Francis Galton's hereditarianism is basically the claim that the human mental and physical traits are strongly inherited and can be measured, ranked, and selectively improved across generations. Genetic manipulation. Here's a condensed but accurate breakdown of its core ideas, which again, somebody brought this up under a comment section. I think it was Leslie who makes my bookmark. Shout out to Leslie.
Leslie.
Gen 6 conspiracy, G6, 6G. What was Brandon hinting at here? Genesis chapter 6, the angels come down, had affairs with the sons of God came down, had affairs with the daughters of men. It says it'll be like the days of Noah, manipulating, crossbreeding. We're still trying to do that, man, and I think we're pushing to a point where it's gonna come to fruition, and people aren't going to like the monstrosities that we create. Core premise: nature dominates nurture. Galton argued that intelligence, temperament, and even moral character are primarily inborn. There's none righteous, no, not one. And most of those traits that you learn, as opposed to what Max Stirner was hinting at, you're not necessarily born with the traits of what is good and what is evil or how to treat people in society. You're dependent to learn those things off of your parents, right? The environment matters, but mostly at the margins. Human differences are therefore biologically structured, not socially constructed. So you're just telling me it's an innate ability. I would eventually learn it anyway. How to eat with a fork, which is true. Maybe you just need another individual that's your same species in order to learn how to do this, right? Then you watch something like The X-Files where somebody's like a hybrid, looks like a prehistoric human being, and you're wondering, like, okay, well, they're acting like an animal out in the wilderness. I don't know. I think personally, yeah, you do learn it from being in society. I don't know if that's a natural biological function. Monkey see, monkey do. I would lean more towards that. This was the direct pushback against more egalitarian or environmental explanations of human behavior. The statistical inheritance, not just an antidote. He tried to turn hereditary into quantifiable science using family pedigree studies, correlations between relatives, early statistical methods, including regression. He also responsible for introducing concepts like regression towards the mean and correlation developed further by later statisticians. He argued traits cluster in families in predictable ways. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe his cousin, Darwin, they had a lot of inbreeding going on in their family. Very similar to like the pharaohs. So are you basically giving an endorsement that it's a good thing to keep it with a particular gene pool, as it were? Sounds like it. Sounds like it. The hierarchy of traits. Galton believed traits were unevenly distributed in populations, normally distributed bell curve thinking, and statistically in terms of value, intellectual and moral traits at the top. This led to the idea that societies naturally contain high-quality hereditary lines and low-quality hereditary lines. So basically, if you have Down syndrome, that's an incentive to get rid of you because obviously you're a defect to the human evolution. I was
Which
talking
is
to,
an option for pregnant women. They give them that option.
oh yeah, we're connecting to that. I was talking to my buddy Sam one time, and I said, so you're basically telling me that you think it'd be okay to purge somebody if they're not contributing anything to society, like somebody with Down syndrome or they're confined to a wheelchair? He says, yes. I was like, bro, do you realize what you're saying? So that's what the Nazis were doing. They were throwing people in wheelchairs off of balconies and whatnot. It's like because they weren't the pure Aryan race. He says, you do realize that's what you're aligning with by saying that. Like, no, I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying I see once in a while to get rid of the people that are like holding society back, there's a necessity for that. I was like, what the crap? So, selective breeding analogy, he explicitly borrowed from animal breeding. If you can breed better horses or dogs, you can, in principle, breed better humans. This is where the hereditarianism transitions into eugenics as a program, not just a theory. So, again, to give it thought is to give it life, right? I'm not going new age manifest. No. What I'm saying is that you created the idea, you put it out there, and now somebody's going to act on what you just said. This is what a Christian's supposed to do. You're supposed to speak your word, speak the truth, and let the seeds fall where they may. And hopefully God will, water and plant and bring somebody else along their way. Other people, it's the same thing, secular concepts. Somebody puts something out there and somebody's like, that's what I believe. And then they watch their YouTube and it's like, what? Microwave philosophy. I watched a 20-minute YouTube clip from a guy on YouTube that seems to know what he's talking about or explaining somebody else that came from the past that explained my belief systems. And you're like, that's what I believe. And then that's it. You never researched it. You never tested it against other opposing opinions and viewpoints. And then you get mad when somebody does cross-examination on what it is you say you believe. So, social implication managed for reproduction. From his framework, Galton proposed encouraging reproduction among the fit. You'd probably pass that test. Discouraging or preventing reproduction among the unfit. You're too fat. You're too lazy. You're too slow. You have a birth defect. You shouldn't be procreating. Using incentives, norms, or policy, which always comes from the C, policy, police. He was not always explicitly coercive, but the logic enabled coercion later on. This is the bridge into institutional eugenics. And again, I wrote as a sub note, I'm like, so this gets into dangerous territory. What is considered fit? Is it physique? Is it intellect? Is it strength? Is it dexterity? Is it faith?
Mm.
What exactly are we gauging this parameter for? And how do we know that you're like Malthus? How do we know that your theory is correct as the standard? Or we just have to kill a whole bunch of people and then read about it 40, 50 years later in a history class saying, well, that wasn't right. So we just adapt it and tweak it a little bit later so the thing never goes away. We just adapt it until it fits what we're looking for. I think that's why Christ would have to return because he said no human flesh on the earth would survive. Intelligence as a hereditary unit. He assumed intelligence is largely inherited. He behaves like a stable biological trait. It can be improved at the population level through selection. This laid the groundwork for later IQ testing culture, even though IQ testing came after him. So you're really stupid. Like, again, part of that is interesting. Sometimes I'm taking these tests online and I'm over here going, how did I land way over here? That doesn't make any sense. And I have to gauge that. Why? Sometimes these tests, they don't equate for libertarian, anarcho, independent, centrist, right? They don't fit that into their bracket. So I'm going to end up here or there, or whatever, on a scale test, right? Now, granted, yes, you can kind of glean, you can maybe give an explanation, as I've done before with you in the past, how I think I've landed in this quadrant. But that's, again, are you able to explain and define who you are
Mm.
as an individual without necessarily having the test? I might have, like you said before, Brandon, you're smart. I went to sixth grade, GED, didn't even pass college. That's not smart. If you're looking again, if you're looking on a secular scale, you don't have a doctorate, you don't have a master's, you never accomplished anything, you were technically a school dropout. That's not smart according to the world standard.
Mm.
I actually even rode the short bus for a little time when I was in first and second grade or whatever it was, because I had a hard time reading. Now, what do I do for a living, Cliff?
Read.
A lot of reading. So again, gauging that whole bracket of saying, well, you technically should not survive because you were inferior, you didn't know how to right? You can make that argument, and it might be true. Maybe as well. That's what helped me become what I'm doing now because I had to. It's like a flower, right? No flower ever blossoms without pushing through a little dirt. It needed time to be cultivated. Sometimes it needs a little resistance in order to push through, right? So maybe there's a little nod in that direction for what they're saying, but to say that you can gauge that off of a paper test, no, 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 no. Same thing like with money. You're going to tell me you're worth something based off of paper money? No, or any material aspect.
And anybody, the truth is, any human being could learn anything.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? If they put in the time, the effort, you could learn anything. And that's something I never understood about myself. You know, I had such um I just didn't think I was worth a shit. And again, it was because my upbringing, but now being who I am in Christ, I mean, you literally could do anything. You could be a pilot, like any job anybody could learn if they
right,
put in the time and effort. So again, we're all free beings, and the these systems again are to keep certain people out.
right,
Like you're reading, you know, and I truly believe like the poor people, they know that, like for example, generational curses, like
right.
those things that run in my family, that those demons that controlled everybody. And what do? We keep passing it on to the next generation, and you're not even aware of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But luckily God took me out of that and gave me vision, corrected those things, and I'm able to be a new man outside of, you know, the bondage of poverty and everything that it brings in this country, drug abuse, you know, verbal abuse, physical abuse.
Homelessness.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. There is a way out, you know, and it's Jesus Christ. Like everybody could live to their full potential that God created them for, if you're willing to look at the truth and seek it out.
I coined a term back in college. I said intelligent people only thrive off the ignorance of others.
Mm.
Why? Because I bother to read a book. I bother to be controversial, to speculate where others are too afraid to even contemplate. That is honestly what it is. And the other aspect was I've used this analogy before. This guy at a workplace, I was bringing up a song one time to him, and I said that I was kind of surprised. I was reading the comment sections, and somebody didn't know what a hayloft was. I was like, "How do you not know what a hayloft is?" I said, "This kid must have been a real city slicker." And this guy that's sitting there, and he's going, "What is a hayloft?" I'm like, "No, not you too. Come on, man." I was like, "Everybody knows what a hayloft is." He said, "You've never been to a farm and stuff like that." And he actually answered it was respectful, and he said, "Well, bro, you told me you don't really like cars, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "You don't know make models and stuff like that. If I lifted up an engine, you wouldn't know every single part and every single one, would you?" I says, "No." He says, "So see, you basically emphasize, you learn what you want to know about."
Mm.
And I was like, touche. You know what? That was probably one of the best responses. Again, push back. That was probably one of the best responses I've ever heard in my entire life. Because it made me really start thinking, going, you're right. We emphasize and research the things we want to apply ourselves to. I'm not big into cars. Never will be. I'm not big into sports. Never will be. But what I do study and research, that's where I'm very proficient. But as opposed to hoarding all of that and thinking yourself the smartest or best guy in the room or whatever, I like sharing, right? And then sometimes that intimidates people. Intelligence sometimes intimidates, and it's not intelligence as in a degree. It's more of like I just like sharing, and that makes people feel inferior. Why? Because it's that part what you were saying earlier in the show. They get mad at somebody who gets up and actually starts doing something. We're picking up our cross, we're walking past them, and they'd rather sit down on the sidelines, pick up a rock, and throw it at us, saying, "How dare you? You're just this, you're that," and project and blame as opposed to reflect, because it's easier to do that. It's so much easier to throw a rock than to wash somebody's feet.
Mm.
That's where we're at. And you're right. The only answer to that is Christ. Going back
But
to the
do you
prayer.
believe that's your calling? Wouldn't you say like you like reading, you like sharing the information? It's you, but that's kind of the calling God put on you. No, would you say that? Like, do you feel like your calling is God led, right?
Yes, but I think where the grievance occurs is that I've accrued a lot of followers and viewers, but not many. I haven't sparked many doers, and that's the part that grieves my heart, because I don't
Mm.
want you just to follow and view. I want you to start doing something yourself, and I don't care what that is, whether that is podcasting, whether it's starting a knitting circle and talking about Jesus, or whether it's going to a food bank or whatever. I would really prefer to see people do that as opposed to you're just following and consuming my content. I would prefer at a certain point, either one, you're done with my content and you're doing something with your life, so you're so busy. Maybe come back once in a while. I appreciate that. And or, like you said, I don't have the guts or the time at this current junction, so I'm going to support you
Mm.
because that you're speaking on my behalf or on behalf of the ecclesia. Like, I don't like what I'm hearing in my church, blah blah blah. Don't give me a, oh, ministry should just be free. Yes, it is free. But unfortunately, I'm in Caesar's world, and I don't have time to do 40-hour a week, plus create a presentation, plus write my inscriptions, plus run the Instagram page, plus do the editing for these uploads, plus, like,
Do your laundry, clean the house. Like, people
and
don't
try
get
to cook.
how difficult. Exactly.
And again, dude, I left home at 17. I wasn't taught how to do taxes. I wasn't taught how to, like, change the oil for a car. I wasn't given the facts of life speech. Like, you go on this whole list. I had to learn all of that on my own.
Mm.
And now I'm over here saying, all right, gave my 401k and savings. How much are you willing to put on the line? And they're over here going, well, you're hiding behind a private profile setting. Don't tell me what to do when you're not even willing to put your face out there in public. Why? You afraid people are going to scrutinize you? You afraid they're going to research your data? The bad guys already have backdoor access to what you're hiding to make it private. And now you can't be controversial for Christ?
Mm.
Don't tell me what to do. But if somebody's going to at least get up there and put something out there, again, I love those comments. I don't agree with everything that you say. I don't want you to.
Mm.
That's why I'm constantly reciting books and stuff like that. Come to your own conclusion. But for the love of God, and I say that with reverence, pick up the books.
Mm.
Read it. Ask yourself the question, right? It's like, I read a book one time and everybody was laughing at the title, How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. And I almost kind of want to write a sequel for it, is how to think. Because as everybody was walking by, they're like, oh, how to read a book. You're holding it upside down. Stupid little things like that. He was making the case like when you're reading a book, write down where you disagree with the author. It's one of the best things you can do. Have compassion, because sometimes this was written 30, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years before you came around on the scene. So have some grace that he may not have seen the full picture at the time that he wrote this. And I'm over here going, I write sticky notes down. I write where I disagree and agree. I have things where I'm inspired off of what they said.
Mm.
How many people do that today? How do they know to do compare contrast? Or do an intellectual diagnosis of like, this is where they're wrong with this is hypocrisy with that. Do the STEM thing when you're doing English class. Where's the verb? Where's the adjective? You're doing the same thing on an intellectual scale. Most people can't do that. And they get mad when somebody's telling them, well, what's your thoughts on this? Oh, you think you're better than me. No, I was literally just asking you a question. And now you're mad and you're projecting back at me because I'm just saying, have you thought about this?
Mm.
That's what we're supposed to do as Christians. There's conscience of what you think about it. There's conviction of what you do about it.
Mm.
There's a big difference there. Anyways, moral framing, the nationalism, efficiency. This is where you get things like the Aryan race. Galton's hereditarianism wasn't neutral science in his mind. It had a civilized goal, improve population quality. So it's like, as opposed to going what Malthus said, is that we're getting so many crappy people being born, why don't we improve the species? Well, if we improve the species, then we'll all be superior beings, and we wouldn't have to worry about them being inferior and having to work on a wage scale, right? Oh, you actually care about me. Yeah, but I'm going to have to adapt some genetics. Yeah, get me lobotomized. He framed it as a preventing societal decline. This overlaps with the Victorian fears of degeneration. So play on the fears, promote an ideal, and then institutional adoption. Major United States institutions, Cold Spring Harbor Eugenics Record Office, state boards of mental deficiency. We heard about all the problems that went on in the insane asylums. They were doing medical testing, and they were sponsored a lot of times by Quaker Oats and other, things that you're like, wow. So you're usually creating people to have psychedelic issues, or you're creating them and or you're taking them and then you're utilizing them to do your test experiments. That's kind of inhumane. Oh no, it's for the betterment of all mankind. Oh, they
Hey,
built.
they're
Go ahead.
putting people in Canada in them again. And who is it? It's guys like me and you, women like us, who are speaking the truth against the system. Now they're being put in mental hospitals. And what's going to come next? What you just read. You think for yourself. You can't be controlled or manipulated. We're going to run tests on your brain and make
Wellness
you.
therapy, as there's that one guy. I'm not sure if that's the clip you're referring to. That guy that was ran across a therapist in a cafe, and I think she was technically it was jealous, but it was projection. And they said, "Yeah, we passed a new law in Canada that if you're not, mentally well, or if the therapist or whoever says I wasn't even at her office, I bumped into her at a cafe." He says, "Yes, I know." The cop is pulling this guy over. He says, "Yeah, but we're going to be, bringing you to a center for a couple days to get an evaluation check." What?
Could
And he
you
was
imagine?
on the side. He was exposing stuff going on with the Chinese government or whatever, connecting with Canada, and I was like, "Ha!" Like you just said. Mental health check because conspiracy. You're over here looking too much into it. Yeah, and that's a problem because I'm sharing what I'm looking into. Yeah, they're
Hey,
already putting us in
give me.
digital gulags, man. So they built family pedigree tracking systems, classification systems for fitness, tracking systems. Are we seeing that kind of going on today?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, through digital technology, snakeology. Yeah, yeah. Legal enforcement phase for the 1910s and 1930s. Key policy tools, compulsory sterilization laws on the state level. We'll read a little bit more of that in a couple slides. Marriage restrictions, segregation in institutions, and immigration restriction laws on the national level. Wow, so you're telling me migration issues has something to do with restriction laws? Why? We need to create a perfect Landmark moment was Buck versus Bell in 1927, where the U.S. Supreme Court upheld compulsory sterilization. Justice Holmes' line, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. The U.S. outcome is eugenics becomes codified state policy in multiple states. Galton's foundation in late 1800s core idea that human traits are heritable and improvable through selective reproduction. Well, he contributed hereditary talent as a measurable social asset, statistical thinking applied to human populations, the idea of population quality management. We want quality products, quality carbon footprints. So if you're going to go out, we meant to. Oh, okay. So the missing piece, no state apparatus yet, mostly academic plus reformist circles. Eventually, they start getting into society, into the legality thing and legislation, and they start making it mandatory, like we saw during C19. Institutionalization of hereditary science from 1900, 1910s. Galton's ideas got absorbed into early genetics, pre-Mendelian confusion and Mendelian interpretation. Academic anthropology and biology departments, social reform movements concerned with degeneration. The key shift: hereditary stops being a theory about families and becomes a theory about populations. Oh, it's for the good of your family. Oh, you know what? It would be good for all of society if we just did. Oh, all of society. Okay, so there's nothing's off limits here. UK pathway, national efficiency, plus mild eugenics from 1900s to 1930s. Key institutions, Eugenics Education Society in 1907, and later the Eugenics Society. Key thinkers, statisticians, and reformers influenced by Galton's methods. Policy direction, mostly indirect, not fully coercive. Family planning advocacy, marriage counseling movements, segregation debates, never fully implemented at state scale in the UK, and immigration restriction discussions, limited and indirect influence. Are we kind of seeing a little bit of a movement with that, with the paranoia of Muslims going into every country or Hispanics going into every country and people becoming very obsessed with their national purity? I'm not a white supremacist. Okay, so what's your problem with them? Is it because they're economically not desirable? It sounds like it. You're saying they're stealing all your jobs, yet isn't it ironic that they're doing all the jobs that you don't want? So is that really the problem? Again, they're creating the paranoia so you buy the lie. When they want peace and safety, sudden destruction. That's what Trump said during his inauguration speech. Dude, I'm just saying, peace and safety. Give us a better surveillance apparatus. We want this. Okay, it will be upon your heads. Feedback loop, science, policy equals validation. Once the laws exist, state institutions collect data that appear to confirm hereditary assumptions. Sterilization programs are justified statistically, and policy reinforces the original theory. This creates a closed loop. Hereditary theory, classification systems, policy plus data reinforce theory. So the statistics show that if we do this, okay. So if you're getting good statistics and it's showing proof that you're right about what you're saying, then you could justify pretty much anything under the sun. Decline and reframing post-World War II. Association with the Yahtzee, I mean, that's the N word for Germany back in the day. Radical policies discredit explicit eugenics. Terminology shifts from eugenics to genetics. Selection to public health and safety. Population quality to family planning or genetic counseling. Right? Just rebranding, make it a little bit softer, more digestible, a little sugar with the medicine go down. Or
And
the poison.
people love their lives with a little bit of sugar on it, don't they?
It's like, yeah, I'll eat the bug as long as you cover it in caramel and chocolate or whatever. Important nuance. The framework doesn't vanish. It gets repackaged into non-coercive genetics and public health discourse. These terms were making me go, this is reminding me a lot about C19, sorry. So, again, when you saw me doing the show with this guy, I was asking him basic questions. I thought it would be important to ask questions about who coined the term agnostic, right? Now, if you're going off of what Albert Pike said, it says their goal would be to eliminate the nihilists and the agnostics once they form their New World Order. What's a nihilist in their definition? I was thinking about this. This hit me the other day. Wouldn't you say an anarchist is a nihilist? Well, what do you mean? I don't need a ruler. So you don't agree with the rest of society that we need to have organization and representation? Isn't that kind of a bleak view on humanity? You don't think you can trust somebody? Conspiracy? Anarchy? Well, yeah, I'm saying I only believe in Christ. Oh, yeah, well, whatever Christ you're believing in, man, it's not divine rule ordained, is it? You're a problem. Nihilists, all right. The Christian who's actually saying, no king but Christ, I just want the kingdom of heaven, that's a nihilist. And the atheist, I don't believe in God. Why? Oh, if we can ascend to become our own gods. See? That's what somebody was asking me. Why would they want to get rid of both groups? I would say I think those categories would fit the New World Order description, the definition of reframing things. So Thomas Henry Huxley, who was an English biologist and anthropologist who specialized in comparative anatomy, he was born on May 4th, 1825 in Ealing, Middlesex, England, and received only 2 years of formal education at his father's declining Ealing school. Huxley was one of the first adherents to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection and did more than anyone else to advance in its acceptance amongst the scientists and the public alike. He was a passionate defender of Darwin's theory, so passionate that he was nicknamed Darwin's Bulldog. Huxley's organization efforts, public lectures, and writing helped elevate the place of science in modern society. He died due to heart failure on June 29th, 1895, at the age of 70. He was buried in Marylebone Cemetery in Finchley, a northern district of London, next to his son Noel and his brother George. Now, Darwin's Bulldog, as you can see here, is doing the Masonic hidden hand in the jacket. And he was the individual that coined the term agnosticism from the Greek agnostos, meaning it's unknowable. We don't really know where we come from. We don't really know where we go. So if you put somebody into that state, doesn't that make them susceptible to hearing lies from the sophists, ear ticklers? Tell me something that's profound. Tell me something that you theorize. What you saw during the show, the individual was kind of getting upset because he's trying to connect all these dots of space dust and timelines and doesn't really have a definitive thing. I'm bringing history receipts, and that makes him uncomfortable and starts squirming. Why? Because yours is more dot connecting than mine will ever be. I'm actually showing you proof. I'm actually just going through basic etymology, and you don't have an answer for that. So the word agnosticism was first publicly coined in 1869 at a meeting of the Metaphysical Society in London by T.H. Huxley. Metaphysical, I laugh because meta in Hebrew does mean death, so Death Physical Society. Maybe there's something there. It came into my head as a suggestively antithetical to the Gnostic of church history who professed to know so much about the very things which I was ignorant. That is his direct quote. He's like, so all the things that you don't even know, how do you explain those things? Well, I can't. I'll just say, it's up to God. That's God's jurisdiction. I find that to be too vague, so I'm going to say agnostic. Maybe God exists, maybe he doesn't, but it's in a realm that you don't even know, so I'm going to say that's where I'm at. Okay. And you're fair. Again, everybody has the right to make their own choice and decisions. But not knowing, I chuckled because I was reading in Hosea, right? My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Agnosticism means the lack of knowledge, right? It's unknowable. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, the source of truth, I will reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. So that's what agnosticism is doing? Yeah, because you're saying God's not part of the equation that you're trying to explain to me. That doesn't fit. Why? Well, agnosticism is basically saying I don't want accountability. I don't want to take responsibility. It's flight or fight response. Hence why he felt led in the Cafe Gal to do a joint call, like they're making a call for fries and burgers and whatever else anybody wants in this group chat call to get me kicked out. You are a problem. You're an agitator. You made me look stupid because I didn't know how to answer that. Yes, and I'm telling you, because you don't know where you come from, that's zero. You don't know what you're currently doing with your life, that's zero. And you have no idea where you go after you expire. That's 000 across the board. That's why I called it From Zero to One. Apparently, Peter Thiel has a book on the same title. Ironic, right? Guy that's doing a whole series on Antichrist, 0 to 1. Because you're coming out zero on the cash register of life and your existence, then what's the purpose of life? And you don't really know. So that makes you susceptible to concepts like eugenics. All right? This is his grandson, Julian Huxley. God equally with gods, angels, demons, spirits, and other small spiritual fry is a human product arising inevitably from a certain kind of ignorance and a certain degree of helplessness with respect to man's external environment. So you create this pseudo belief in your head that there's a God in the skies when the God, the true God, is within you. Huh? That's what he's basically laying the groundwork. So if all these other things are fictional that you made up, it's a product of your own imagination, you're the thing that keeps yourself in bondage. So what are you saying? Dump the church. Dump the government. Dump everything. You can ascend on your own, baby. That's basically what he's outlining here. Julian Huxley and transhumanism. The term transhumanism was coined by Aldous Huxley's brother. That's the guy that wrote Brave New World.
Yep.
The evolutionary biologist, or the first director and the general of whatever. And as you can see here, the future of medicine, a caduceus staff or a snake in the wilderness, the bronze serpent showing DNA. Time magazine. And they're showing it all the time. Transhumanism, Google, something death, Time 2045, the next human. They're showing us all the time. So the concept of eugenics was not exercised from Western thinking following World War II. Rather, they went underground or were reinvented by assuming more compassionate guises. Julian Huxley's significant contributions to the movement ensured that the underlying notions associated with eugenics would transform and continue into new social movements. During the 1950s, these groups were redefined eugenics as socially progressive, with linkages to the newly formed and comprehensive welfare states that offered solutions to poverty and disease. So make it adaptable with the liberal progressive agenda, right? Feminism, that plays a huge play at this. Huxley adeptly associated the new and modern eugenics movement with a range of reformist ideologies, such as popularization of birth control, the decriminalization of homosexuality, and abortion law reform. He described his process as eugenic modernization. The basic premise remained the same, however. It is far easier to eliminate the poor and the suffering than to eliminate the complex and tenacious sources of their poverty or their suffering. These people believe the masses are too moronic to govern themselves, control, guide themselves. Government means guide or control, meant mind control. So you're too stupid, so let me give you a solution. What? It's for your best interest if you just consider this medical route, this new adapted technology to it. And like I was showing during the show, you saw him going, well, Brandon, I'm not pro eugenics, but if like the couple can't afford to bring the kid into this world, then I think it's right that they have the option available to them to abort that clump of cells and stuff like that. So I said, okay, you just agreed with this slide then that you said you didn't agree with. What? Let me reread it again. And that's what I said. The basic premise remaining the same. It is far easier to eliminate the poor and suffering than to eliminate the complex, tenacious sources of their poverty or their suffering. Getting rid of usury, getting rid of private property, getting rid of economy. It's easier to get rid of the poor by telling them it was their idea through eugenics, as opposed to, oh, okay, so I don't have to really even put that into consideration if I can afford it. Yeah. So he basically endorsed it, not realize that abortion is an offshoot of eugenics. How many people know that today? They don't. So Julian Huxley, his grandson, later became a major figure in the 20th century evolutionary synthesis of the UNESCO humanism and early formulations of what would later be called transhumanist thinkings. UNESCO humanism is a foundational philosophy that emphasizes human dignity, global solidarity, and the transformative power of education, science, and culture to building lasting peace. Sounds great, right? Why would you be
Sounds
opposed
wonderful.
to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're doing it for the wrong reasons and you're doing it without God. It serves as the moral compass, again, moral, for the organization, adapting ancient humanist values to the challenges of the modern era. Scientific humanism rooted in the vision of UNESCO's first Director General, Julian Huxley, who advocated for an evolutionary approach that uses science and reason to advance human progress. Education for all views lifelong learning and inclusive education as fundamental rights. It aims to develop a global citizenship that counters social exclusion. Part of the shoe, part of the crew, part of the ship. Why would you want to be opposed to this? Why would you just want to be part of all humanity? We come together, kumbaya, brother. On top of that, you put like, oh, this is what Christ would wanted, and you're forcing all this on the same time. Mm-mm-mm. Digital humanism, it integrates human rights and ecological awareness into governance of technologies such as artificial intelligence. Humanistic education framework emphasizes that education must move beyond purely utilitarian goals to support the holistic potential of the individual. Like I said, with capitalism, it frequently focuses so much on materialism that you become a magnet. You just accumulate all this stuff, and then the stuff starts drowning you in quicksand. You're like, well, I got all this stuff now. What are you going to do with it? You're not taking it with you. The tribes, they didn't have a bunch of stuff. They just lived off of what they could per day to day, right? The Futures of Education initiative highlights the need to reshape human relationships with each other and with the biosphere. The ethics of AI guides policymakers to ensure new technologies protect individual dignity and collective responsibility. New Humanism and Peace. Amidst global challenges, the organization continues to reinforce intellectual and moral solidarity and to act as the conscience of humanity. Government, mind control, conscience of humanity. I don't know, man.
We see it every day, right? And even with the genetics and eugenics, they don't even need to force the poor to do it. They trick them now.
Yeah.
Everybody is on pharmacia, on some side of, bro, everybody I talk to is on 5 to 10 medications. And I'm here, they're like, well, I need this. The doctor said so. And I'm thinking, man, you're killing yourself and you believe it's helping you, even though you're not getting any better.
Yeah.
That's the part that blows my mind. Well, I need this medication. It's
6
like, do
cigarettes a
you?
day would saves my life, man. That's what the doctor said about camel packs back in the 1950s.
Yeah, smoking butts in the doctor's office.
It's like, what's the point? I could show you all the stats. I could show you all the proof. I show you the origins of where these things come from. You're not going to believe me. Christians will care, but again, these are the two brothers, and they had the movie. Remember in Captain America 2 movie where the U.S. government recruits Yahtzee scientists, and scientists take over all the science and intelligence agencies and the politicians and manufacture wars and chaos to get everyone to embrace a new world order. Ha ha! Science fiction is crazy. Again, so people are saying, Brian, you're making it up about Aldous Huxley or whatever. Well, again, this is known as the Faustian bargain eye, covering up your eye, demonstrational purposes. And again, the show Lucifer found it worthy of representing it. And the description for Faust, which is a play that Marx was very fond of, a deal with the devil turns a man into a marionette in a live-action animated version of this a classic tale. Puppets, artificial intelligence, somebody else controlling you, marionette. Yeah, huh.
Bro, but this is the thing, right? Again, and every time I would say 90% of the things that you're sharing resonate with me to what is going on right in front of us. This is why for years I'm like, even just speaking with you, I'm like, wow, his podcast is gonna blow up because you're right on track. Like you're showing
The
what
progression.
is happening, but still, it's like people still can't see it because again, I don't know. I truly don't understand it because your presentations are spot on. Again, as you're reading this stuff, all this stuff's coming to my mind. Situations, this, that. As I'm listening, I'm getting revelation and connections, and I just don't understand how more people can't see it. Are they just not willing? I just don't understand. You're laying it out. I mean, it's it's right there, guys. Like,
Is there?
open your eyes.
Thing is, if they're willing to invest or not. So, Gates of Hell and the Theory of Eugenics. Bill Gates is the financial member of the subgroup of the Lucis Trust, used to be known as the Lucifer Trust, originally called the Lucifer Publishing Company, founded in 1922 by Alice Bailey, who is a Yahtzee supporter and a spiritual successor to Madame Helena Blavatsky, a cultist and British agent. Isn't that interesting? She's also the one that said that their Messiah figure would come on the scene in 2024, 25. Yeah, well, maybe there's something there. Somebody got elected or sworn in around that time when all the planets aligned on the same day as a inauguration day. But no, I'm crazy. Anyways, Blavatsky founded Theosophy, a New Age occult movement, with influenced Mr. Adolf's Mein Kampf, as well as inspired her great friend and follower Aleister Crowley, the renowned Satanist. Alice Bailey's Blavatsky's work were instrumental in shaping eugenics, whose founder, Francis Galton, was Charles Darwin's cousin. Darwin received the inheritance of the Masonic teachings from both his father and his grandfather, a 33-degree Freemason. Well, they're not Satanists. Again, as that kid was getting upset, I'm just saying, bro. Yeah, they are. And because you really don't know what you're going through, it's like it's ironic that you say you come from a Christian home, but no wonder you're becoming an agnostic because either New Age or agnostic, that's what's going to happen when you have a Masonic influence in the home or just dark stuff going on, generational curses, as you've reframed it before. So Satanism is the worship of ego, the dark occult's justification for evil. Now there is egoism, then there is ego. The ego is like, I've just looked to myself for all of my answers. The other one I would like to say is I'm an existentialist, you could say with Max Stirner. I'm looking to find out the meaning of life. And if other people are not contributing to that, then I'm going to cut myself off from that. What does that mean? I want to become a better person. So if these other people are holding me back, I'm done with that. There's also the lover of self, which is more leaning into narcissus. Narcissist is where we get the term. It came from a Greek, a guy that would always look into the reflection of the pool, and he just loved how he looked in it. That's where the term narcissist came from. This is where you get into what Timothy was talking about in the last days, that mankind becomes lovers of themselves rather than lovers of God. So from Latin, occultare, meaning to hide or to conceal. The four tenets of Satanism is one, self-preservation. This includes the preservation of one's agenda and one's group above all. This is direct opposition to conscience, compassion, and love. That's what capitalism tends to create. It is mammonism. Mammon and capitalism, Google it, folks. You'll find they are synonymous. Moral relativism. This denial of the objective difference between right and wrong allow psychopaths to falsely justify their violence and aggression against others. Well, who's to say who's survival of the fittest? What is considered fit? Is it muscular? Is it intelligence? Dexterity? Like I said before, you determine what that is, so you play your own god. Social
And what are
dark,
they basically
but
saying? Those who are willing to be the wickedest are going to survive. How many people are you willing to step on to get where you want to be? It's wicked thinking. It really is. I
when
could do
they
that.
when they released last or November before last, Elon Musk released Dark Maga Assemble, and it was showing a bunch of anime clips in the background. But the thing that freaked me out, there is a scene I think in the second or third installment of a series, Guts. It's an anime, and this individual named Griffin was having a nightmare series, but he had a vision where he was walking over all of the mercenary guys that worked for him in order to send to a castle that was on top of a hill. And that was one of the clips that they threw into that compilation on top of, Attack on Titan, Nephilim, and all these laser eyes crusaders. I was going, why out of all the scenes in that entire 3 hour something movies, that was the clip that you took? Who are you willing to walk over? Oh, wait a minute. You're telling us you're going to walk over all your supporters in order to achieve your own means. Yeah. Scary, man. Social Darwinism, the concept of social version of survival of the fittest, leads psychopaths to believe that they are the most socially evolved people within society. They actually believe that their lack of compassion and their ruthlessness are evolutionary superior traits. Do we not see that? I'm an American, yeah. You're inferior to me because you come from a third world country. No, you've been oppressing my country, right? It's not poor, it's overexploited. I just wasn't able to build a navy as fast as you. I wasn't able to, do such and so as fast as you. But you think you're better than me because you oppress me? Okay. If that's what again, pride goeth before a fall, haughty spirit before destruction. Not me, Bible. But that's what you're doing when you put nationalism and eugenics. They're very close cousins. Eugenics, finally, the fourth one. Since they consider themselves superior, they believe they have the right to decide who lives and who dies. Hence, when I look at somebody like Charlie Kirk, I think we should have, corporation-sponsored executions. Like this execution is brought to you by Coca-Cola. What, bro? As a Christian, what are you endorsing right now? State-sponsored executions that are, sponsored by corporations?
What can go wrong?
Right, Charles Freeman. Again, Charles means Charles means Freeman. Kirk means church. Freeman Church. Freedom Cities. So black magic, the left-hand path, which is where, again, in Freemasonry, black and white, no gods, no masters. There's a fine line between anarchy, where you're saying I'm against rulers, I'm against the concept of slaves, but this is where I hold the line to a lot of anarcho circles, is saying, no, the only thing I do submit to is covenantal mutualism, whereas I submit willingly back to God. Because I've acknowledged, okay, I am my own man, I am my own person, but at the end of the day, I'm nothing without my creator breathing life into me.
Praise God.
Right? So, again, no king but Christ. It's a little bit controversial, but look into it more, folks. I've recommended stuff a dozen times in the past. But Gnostic, the Great Awakening equals magic, the beast system. Satanism, the Great Reset, equals black magic, the harlot. So they have us so focused on one area, they're not seeing, there's two deceptions going on at the same time. We don't care which one succeeds. You could say it's like a horse race. Oh, black magic is running ahead of the white magic. White magic is not happening. They're going neck to neck. Right? And you're over here following, Candace Owens is saying, oh no, Tucker Carlson's saying it right. No, Nick Fuentes is saying it right. Oh no, this. So you're following all these soothsayers, right? These political pundit soothsayers, you're following them for the answer, not realizing they're also cultivating you to this path, to the left or the right. Not realizing that that's causing you to stumble into evil. Proverbs 4:27, or is it 27:4? One of those two. I might sometimes get the verse and numbers goofed up, but look into it, folks.
It's the same destination. Two different roads, same destination.
It's part of the wide path, bro.
Yep.
Part of the wide path. The Great Awakening, the Great Delusion. So don't be deceived. This is in part what they were talking about with eugenics, compulsory sterilization in 50 American states. Dude, this one was told to me by my buddy Manny. Shout out to him. He told me about it. I looked into it, and I was like, how have I never heard of this before? You're going to probably grimace a little bit, but bear with me, folks. It's important to hear about. American eugenics refers to the inter alia of compulsory sterilization laws adopted in over 30 states that led to more than 60,000 sterilizations of disabled individuals. Many of these individuals were sterilized because of a disability. They were mentally disabled or ill, or belonged to a socially disadvantaged groups living in the margins of society. American eugenic laws practices implemented in the first decades of the 20th century influenced much larger national socialist, so that's been in America, folks, compulsory sterilization program, which between 1934 and 1945 led to approximately 350,000 compulsory sterilizations, and it was a stepping stone towards the Holocaust. Even after the details of the Yahtzee sterilization program, as well as its role as a precursor of euthanasia murders, became more widely known after World War II, and the New York Times had reported on extensively, in great detail, even before the implementation of 1934, sterilizations in the American states did not stop. Some states continued sterilization residents until the 1970s. While Germany has taken important steps in commemorating the horrors of its past, including compulsory sterilization, however belated, the United States arguably has not when it comes to eugenics. For some states, there is still a paucity of reliable studies that show where the sterilization occurred. Hospitals, asylums, and other places where sterilizations were performed have a far typically chosen not to document that aspect of their history. Moreover, until now, there has not been a website providing an easily accessible overview of the American eugenics for all the American states. So I'm not going to go into all of that, but yeah, kind of freaky, isn't it?
It is.
All the way up to the 1970s. That was literally like, what, 50 years ago? 50 something? That's not too far away, people. And when they were saying Buck versus Bell, we like to think of ourselves as the good guys here in America, but when the Yahtzees modeled their race laws on us, in the 1920s, the U.S. was the world leader in eugenics. We forcibly sterilized 60,000 unfit people. The Supreme Court of Buck versus Bell ruled that 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. When the Yahtzees wrote their sterilization laws, they literally cited American statutes as their inspiration. The Holocaust legal framework was made within the U.S. Kind of freaking me out, dude, that a lot of people don't are like, they're celebrating Mr. Adolf, and I'm going, still a statist, still wearing a uniform, still saying that all the power goes towards one man in order to fix it. I don't care if you want to say it's a hoax, it's that. No, this is the problem. Is you're saying that guy was okay. We just need to put somebody else on the seat to fix the problems in the world. And you're going to base it on eugenics? Well, if we just all take out the Holy Land, the chosen people, if we just go after against all the Muslims that are in our country, say that ideology, not ethnicity, that ideology that you're saying is okay is what a Christian's supposed to be against, right? Because we're all made in the image of God. But you're fighting for the image on a dollar bill, which is of a president of man. That's what you're fighting for. It's sick, dude. Anyways, 2 books. People who are kind of wanting to get into the eugenics thing and history, because you're over here like, no one's ever told me about this kind of stuff. War Against the Weak by Edwin Black and Reproduction on the Reservation by Brianna Theobald is talking about, in that particular one, in the 70s, doctors in the United States, sterilization. Estimated 25 to 42% of Native American women of childbearing age, some as young as 15. Dude, 25 to 42%, that is half of the population on it, right? Put them on a reservation, put them in a little separate camp. 1970s, people. So when you're over here saying, that's just a liberal agenda, no, don't listen to left-right. Listen to the humanitarian aspects that's being said. That's the thing a Christian should be caring about and saying to yourself, how can I fix that? Can I have compassion for this person? If I educate myself, does that make me more compassionate? Yes. There's scripture, and then there's just saying, how can I be a better person? What's wrong in the world? How can I fix it? How can I bring the Bible to this topic? How can I soothe the wounds of what the state did with what the compassion or the Spirit did for you? I don't think people know how to think like that when they're consuming this content. That's why I'm doing it, dude. I read about it because I want to say I'm never going to do that. Why? Because I want to speak. If I speak out about it, right? I speak up for those that can't speak for themselves. That's biblical. The abused, the oppressed. That is what we're supposed to be advocating.
So, and like you said in the presentation, turning a blind eye to it for whatever thoughts are in your head it's antichrist. Yes. It really is, just going with it because it's America. It's the best country in the world. You're delusional, man. It's not. Wiped out the Indians, what they did to the Irish, the African, I mean, the Chinese, like killing, manipulating, and hurting for financial gain is not Christian. Jesus doesn't like it. It's not rocket science, dude, which is BS, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Like,
People did
love
all
thy
this stuff in
neighbor
my
as
name.
thyself.
Right. And the thing is, you're reading that thing, that nation will rise up against nation. How is that possible for a Christian to get to seed if you love everybody, your neighbor as yourself? Because you're more focused on neighbor as opposed to nation.
Mm.
What does he say? The Great Commission to go forth and reach all nations. That doesn't sound like somebody that's trying to solidify a Christian nationalist state or an international theocratic technocracy. No, we understand that the world is falling, that the only way it's going to be saved is with Christ returning, not us picking up the sword like Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane and trying to fix it that way. No, 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 no. We're over here reaching all the nations, and they're going to hate us, right? They're going to hate us because we're saying we gotta look to Christ. We're not trying to fix it of ourselves. No.
And does that Bible verse say there's one group that's in both groups? No, there's two different groups.
Yep.
The groups of the nations and the group of the kingdom.
Right.
It's not, again, it's simple.
And
Which
Christ makes
group
war
are
against
you
the
in?
saints, and the saints are those who are set apart, which means what? They're not part of this world. That includes all the nations that Christ denied when he was offered all the kingdoms of this world. People, come
Yes.
on, don't buy the lie. And again, Captain America, Brave New World, and then Captain America, New World Order. At the end of the first movie, you had a Corona beer, a spiked virus, and a mask. Like I said before, Corona, it's a spiked virus, a spiked crown, Corona, at the top of their hermetic Kabbalah of life of ascending. Did they put something in us? I don't know, but there's documents being allegedly put out, that the people who got the injection emancipation, that they're not human anymore. They're a new species. And again, these are some articles, whether it means something or not. Donald Trump's inevitable descent into eugenics, motherjones.com. The Austin Chronicle, Donald Trump relies on eugenics concepts, UT professor argues in new book. The Independent, Trump's State Department official has repeatedly called for mass sterilization of low IQ trash. That was in February of 25.
I'm
I
on the
don't know,
list. Yeah.
right? Operation Warseed. When you looked at it, it's World Wide Web. With the tips here, World Wide Web. I'll make you fishers of men. Internet to hold or restrain. I don't know. DNA is a double helix of 144,000. Camp of the Saints is 144,000. 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons is 666. Number of the beast. Statues are given the ability to speak. That sounds like a robot. To force you to worship the beast system. Yeah. And again, when you look at this, the golden head, Kether, Babylon, Persia would be in the center. Daniel's dream here. I see it coming into full fruition, dude. And at the base, it's 10. Was it Egdom? Kingdom? Sorry, 10 Kingdom. Malkuth, Mars. The 666 hand moonja sign is what it represents in the occult. Or the cross, the symbol of Tammuz. That is what that represents in the occult, and it looks very eerily similar to Nebuchadnezzar's statue. If you want to become your own god. But guess what? Every one of these kingdoms that was depicted in his vision for Daniel chapter 2, these are kingdoms. And what happens to all the kingdoms? They get crushed by an outside source. Christ returning. All the kingdoms of earth are shattered by Christ. So you want to put Christian nationalism in this thing? Is that the empire of your 10 clay toes? Oh, look, Malkuth, 10. The 10 districts and the Roman, what is it? The 10 districts, the Council of Rome. They want to have 10 districts for Earth. The 10 kings that align with the Antichrist. A equals 1, I equals 9. X for Osiris. Rising. Nimrod. Guys. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Money means one eye. Mono eye. You're going to give up a retina scan, your iris scan? You pay money to the IRS on top of the Israeli Supreme Court. is an all-seeing eye. They call you pupils in school. You're overthinking it. You won't be able to access it without an eye scan. Eye for an eye. Then you have the one-eyed shepherd and Zechariah mentioned. But the flock? iPhone? Prison phone? So again, you could go into a whole thing with Planned Parenthood. I don't have to read all this, but Margaret Sanger, she was very much part of the eugenics thing and racist. We don't want to want a word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is a man who can straighten out the idea that if it ever occurs in any of their more rebellious members, colored people are like human weeds and are to be exterminated. Planned Parenthood founder here, folks. Birth control must lead to ultimately a cleaner race. Eugenics, the most adequate and thorough avenue for social, racial, political, and social problems. Political.
Hey, and you know what blows my mind? You just read those quotes that she said. And now in culture, especially the black culture, they look at abortion, not all black culture, but in the hood black culture, I'll say that's normal. It's my right to get an abortion. The person who made it. She just told you to kill black people, and now you're literally like,
I'll do it myself. Thanks for telling me to do it.
It's crazy. This is my right. It's like, is it your right, or have you been tricked into some crazy mindset where you're killing your children by somebody who told you that's what it was meant for?
Even with C19, dude. You looking into the ingredients? No, but I need to do it. Why? Because it's for the good of the rest of society. It's good for grandma. Grandma's got like 15, 20 years left, if that. If
she's lucky.
Right? And you're over here saying, I got to do it for grandma. Really? Because the state told you to? And they're forcing you, and or, like I've been saying before, Esau giving up his birthright for a bowl of soup. I'll do it for a donut and fries. I'll get the ship. Oh, really? Okay. So did you know that Bill Gates' father, William Gates, has long been involved in the eugenics group Planned Parenthood, a rebranded organization birthed out of the American Eugenics Society? Planned Parenthood was funded on the concept that host human beings are just like reckless breeders and human weeds and need a culling. Mainstream media fact checkers, Snopes, and PolitiFact say that Bill Gates Sr. never worked for Planned Parenthood and dismissed the whole idea as a conspiracy theory. Planned Parenthood websites have scrubbed all remnants of Senior Gates working for them, and unfortunately for the mainstream media, Bill Jr. spilled the beans and on May 9th, 2003, on a PBS interview, like eugenist's father, like eugenist's son. Gates Jr. told Bill Moyers, well, let's play it live, shall we?
As urgent were issues related to population, reproductive health. But did you come to reproductive issues as an intellectual? When I was growing up, my parents were always involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with.
Yeah. So we got Bill Gates with Malthusian Theory, and it's a theory of the population growth. Like I said before, resources linear. And guess who told me about Malthusian Theory? A Mason at my job.
No way.
Yep. Now, he was raising his eyebrow, but like there's Neo-Malthusian, which is an upgraded. It's the advocacy for human population planning. Planned Parenthood planning. To ensure resources and environmental integrities for current and future human populations, as well as for other species. In Britain, the term Malthusian can also refer to more specifically to arguments made in favor of family planning. Hence, organizations like the Malthusian League, Neo-Malthusians, differ from Malthus's theory mainly in their support of use of birth control. Malthus was a devout Christian, believed that self-control, abstinence, was preferable to artificial birth control. He also worried that the effect of contraceptive use would be too powerful in curbing growth, conflicting with the common 18th century perspective to which Malthus himself adhered, that a steadily growing population remained a necessary factor in continuing the progress of society generally. Modern neo-Malthusians, which is Bill Gates, are generally more concerned than Malthus with environmental degradation and catastrophic famine than with poverty. Famine? Isn't that something that happens in Revelation? And aren't they putting out ticks all over the place so people don't eat red meat? Well, how would most people know that they can't eat red meat when they're already growing lab-grown meat, fruits and veggies? They're eating literally artificial crap. They're not even eating real food. It's trough crap. Right? Child sacrifice then with the Mayan temple. Planned Parenthood now.
Again, you can see with your own two eyes the connection there. Like, don't say we're being out, we're connecting dots that aren't. Open your eyes. Well, yeah, geez.
Putting it right there for your consideration, and I'm showing you how it's outlined in history with receipts. Again, the nations conspire. Conspiracy theories, nations conspire. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that they plan. And you are, again, Planned Parenthood. Psalm 106, 37 through 38. Yea, they sacrifice their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. Now the idol, again, whether it's made of cloth, wood, stone, whether it's a celebrity of flesh. Well, this celebrity did it, and I'm so proud of her because she claimed her own. But you did it because someone else told you to? It's so sad. It's so tragic, and most people don't want to think about that, dude.
It's heartbreaking. Again, and when your eyes are open and you see it, it's frustrating on a daily basis. Walking into, meeting people and seeing the brainwashing and the self-destruction they're bringing on themselves through what someone else said, so they can fit in their little groups. I can't leave my house because I don't like being around people because I see too much, and it just pains me. It frustrates me. Again, if you want to be destroyed for a lack of knowledge, that's your choice. Yep. If you don't want to read into this and look into it and hear it with an open mind and pray on it and actually dig into what Brandon's trying to show you, what's coming to you is that's you reap what you sow. It's you're bringing it on yourself. I suggest the Bible tells you to seek knowledge, seek truth, seek understanding. That's all we're trying to say. Look with your own two eyes, listen with your ears. I mean, come on.
Those that are telling you to second guess your Bible and stuff like that, because that's what a lot of Gnostics are doing. It says knowledge will increase in the last day. That's what Gnosticism means. But the problem is you're becoming lovers of man's wisdom over lovers of God. Claiming to be wise, they became fools in their own eye. Yeah, that's what you're doing. But unless the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, philosophy is the love of wisdom, right? Wisdom. Everybody loves wisdom. Sophia, sophist, right? The thing is, what are you doing when you're testing said man's wisdom or research or insights? Are you basing it off of God's word? Yeah, because a lot of the stuff is woe unto the rich that abuse so-and-so. Woe unto this group that's doing that. Woe to the person that's deceiving this one. Woe to the one that's doing usury, charging interest on their neighbor. Do we understand those words? We're like, oh, usury, whatever that word is. Oh, mammon, whatever that word means. I'm looking into the etymology of some of these words, and it's like, that's going on today. That's a landlord. What? Lord, owner, master, bail. What did Christ say? Call no man Lord, owner, master, bail. Lords of Europe during the feudal system. This is stuff still going on today. We shouldn't be charging rent for people. What? I'm telling you, that's not biblical. So again, little things like that. You got a problem with your landlord? Yeah, well, I'm a Christian, and I was reading into that, and I found out that's actually not biblical. God doesn't endorse that. What? You just now put your foot in the door, and you have a potential to witness to them. God agrees with me? God never designed that. That's man. Constantly, dude. You can hammer that out, but most people, they don't want to keep digging, or when they're picking up this stuff, they're just going, yeah, it's getting bad out there. Yeah, it's getting bad out there. What are you doing with this information? I'm hoping I'm giving you a potential to hand a tract or a moment to put your foot in the door so you can open a way to say, hey, yeah, Bible agrees with you. What? Because we're always being told the Bible says your life is sin, blah, 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 blah. Once in a while, imagine approaching somebody saying the Bible actually agrees with your sentiments. Yeah, you're being abused. Yes, the system is wrong. It agrees with me? Yeah. Imagine you telling if something agrees with them as opposed to telling them they're always wrong. All of a sudden, now they want to read about why it agrees with them. And before you know it, they're eventually getting convicted on the other thing. Think about Zacchaeus, dude. Zacchaeus, you're a tax collector. You're a filthy person. I'm never going near your house. What does he say? I'm dining at your place today, buddy. After he's there, what happens? I want to give back fourfold everything that I've taken from everybody. Why? Because you gave him the benefit of a doubt. You said, hey, guess what? I know the crowd doesn't like you. I see you amongst the crowd. I'm going to come to you, buddy. Try to think of it that way. Right? We're doing it wrong, dude. We're trying to be coercive with legislation, which is no better than Sharia law. You have to believe what I believe. No, I don't. No, they don't. We don't impose that on anybody. It's the beauty of self-conscious submission, saying, I will make that personal sacrifice because I understand the truth and why I'm doing it. As opposed to you just have to do it because it's the law of the land and divine rule, or they're going to beat me with a baton stick or put me in a cage or something like that because I defy the system. Sorry, we'll close with a couple more things. Again, this is the MAGA, the magician on the tarot card, white tunic, red sash, just like Christ. Ouroboros thing, universal, live forever. That happens to be very similar to an Elon Musk's Neuralink thing, as they're doing a 666 hand thing as they're holding it. 1, 2, 3 for 666. Divine rule, the magician's stance of being in alignment with the divine realm or a 3D reality. The one over ahead represents the God potential movement and independence. That they can become their own gods, as above, so below. Yeah. Your all-seeing eye, the air sign. Satan is the prince and power of the airways. Everybody's following Nimrod's son Tammuz with this stuff, dude, and they have no idea what they're getting into. And you're doing it every Christmas when you're bringing these trees into your home. For the merchants were the great men of the earth, and by their sorceries were the nations deceived. Antichrist was given a crown. He got a crown in Jerusalem. He also was in charge during the corona, so Shamil Shemazel, man. This is what Elon Musk had to say, or Babylon Musk, about transhumanism. You could basically store your memories as a backup and restore your memories, and ultimately could potentially download them into a new body or a robot body. Maybe it's not so much cloning as it is soul transferring into another vessel. What are you talking
They know where they're going. They
know how to
deep
steal a soul,
down
dude.
know where their soul's going, and they're trying to find any way. And not only do they want this path, they want you to take this path too. Because the damned want other people damned. That's just
Right.
how wicked people are. It just is what it is.
If I'm going down, you're going down with me.
Yep.
History began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have a soul and free will, that's over. World Economic Advisor Yuval Harari. What if the fourth industrial revolution, iron and clay, empire of iron and clay, will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity? Become one with the machines? This was a big thing with the worker classes. Like, we're being reduced to machine labor. We're being reduced to iron, right? Iron's taking over industry. We're on the last legs of this, folks, and now we're about to merge with the robot? Iron and clay? What does it say? Daniel 2:43. The iron and machine and clay, flesh will not cleave together. Will not. So have faith, people. It's not going to work. But again, defy the system. It's the only time I'm promoting revolution. When the time comes, God will let you know. Matthew 24:22, and if those days, last days, had not been cut short, no flesh would survive. These sick individuals with their 5, 6G They're pressing this. And who signed all that? Like I said before, how Trump won over Europe on 5G. See your Baphomet? They want it ready commercially by 2030. Some commercial deployments could be as early as 28 or 29. We're ticking closer. And again, they have the transhumanist quantum agenda. GQT particle. Have you read the transhumanist agenda yet? According to the researchers, the building blocks for the neural chip are all in injected individuals. It says the neural chip Franco Vitalio's oxide-dependent Clarin nanotechnology involves both that of the synthetic molecules and is delivery vehicle for the New World's Order brain chip. This is technology, snakeology, they use to hack into your body and align your physiology with the parallel life form required to attach to your LO or IoT. We will take a deeper dive into this mechanism in subsequent chapters. Don't take my word for it. You're just rolling your eyes. I understand. It does sound cuckoo bizarro. I get it. We sound like we're going blah, 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 blah. It makes no sense, right? But here's the thing. Popular mechanics. Scientists want to use people as antennas to power 6G by 2030. And this is what I found on Instagram. Masonic Find. The inscription. Are you ready for the future, brother? Robots in Masonic aprons. Immortality. God consciousness. Download your conscious into a metallic body. Live forever without the need for God. They show you, they tell you, and you don't get it. 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons, carbon footprint. Your mark of the beast, people. Man becoming one with machine. Walmart, Mart Law. Star of Remphan. Anyways.
Hey, and the thing is, people, I haven't talked about this. I like to be open about everything in my life because I have nothing to hide, but somebody close to me, and I'm not going to get the great details because I'm trying to be respectful, but somebody I know, 40 years old, full-blown cancer. That's not normal. You know, these shots and all this stuff, man, people need to wake up, man, because again, we've been telling people this for years. I told this person in the past, don't get the shot. People are getting cancer. They're having heart attacks. Oh, you're crazy conspiracy theory. He's a crazy. And I don't find any joy in it. It hurts my soul. It truly does. Every day I'm pained that I tried to warn this person and now they're suffering. And I once loved them. And that's not normal. 40-year-olds don't get cancer, people. Again, and yeah, based most of the time, but again, and what do people do? They're trusting the same system to heal them that made them sick. It's disgusting. It's heartbreaking. The answers are in this book, the truth and prayer, and Jesus can fix anything. I don't know, man. It's just been hard, Brandon. You know, I haven't podcast because again, people just don't. They don't want to. They don't even want to try.
Well, again, people like Cliff, Cody, a couple others. It's getting so that they have to go back to work because they don't have time for this because we're not being supported enough. Most of the people that aren't inviting me back on shows, they're doing it for sensationalism, clickbait, whether they realize it or not. I have compassion on them. The other ones are too new agey and they don't like what I'm talking about. Other ones I think might be controlled opposition. So without that, it's like I don't have time to do this fellowship with people that are serious about the faith. I'm trying my best, but like finding the platforms and resources that are going to let me do this, it's coming slim next to none. So the supporters, thank you. That's on you. And yes, I still am getting DMs, even though they trickle through very slowly. It is changing people's lives ever so slowly, but it's something because when things hit the fan, hopefully you'll start meeting with people and you'll have the means of communicating what you've been seeing, experiencing, and maybe God will start utilizing us. I don't know. I hope he utilizes the ecclesia as the 2 witnesses. I hope that's the case. If not, well, a martyr's life. Anyways, close with this. We will become like gods is essentially what AI says. Hermes, which is equivalent of Nimrod's son Tammuz. I did a translation of his name. It comes out to roughly mean His Highness, the hero of divine ordinances of eternal youth. So basically, through alchemy, we can ascend to become like our own gods. Alchemy, right? So Satan's lie in Adam and Eve. It's very similar to the New Age Eastern deception. One, that God's word isn't reliable. Genesis 3:3. No, you will not die. Genesis 3:4. And number 3 is you will be like gods in Genesis 3:5. Very similar to the modern New Age deception, which says the Bible isn't God's word, that God's within you. 2, that you will live forever through reincarnation or ascension. And 3, that we are gods and goddesses. It's a different name, but it's still the same old lie. And with that, concludes our presentation. Thanks for having me on, Cliff. Appreciate you offering up your platform. And again, folks, could be wrong, might be right. I'm just trying to show you the historical receipts and progression of how we got to where we are, so it kind of gives you a little bit more clarity. Yes, I know I've done this before, but I've updated it since my last time showing this, like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now. I don't know. I think I combined this once with Heidi, and she went to the Cabbage Patch Kids. So again, same thing, but adapted. It's updated. Hopefully it convicts you folks. Again, I don't think 2020 is something just to shrug off and laugh at. I truly think it had a greater significance than we truly realized. And I think we're about to come to the head of what that exactly entails within the next 2 to 3 years. Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, I always pray that I am wrong. But if I'm right, well, try to get prepared, get that knowledge, and remember to thank those that are sponsoring the Ecclesia to keep the message going.
And could I just say 2 things? Anybody who's feeling like me, anybody listening to this message, because I know there are listeners on your platform, mine, who they can see. God has opened their eyes. And if you're feeling like I feel a lot lately, like just we're losing, no one's getting it. This is one of the Bible verses I go to when I'm feeling low and weak. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and shall walk and not faint. Meaning, if you're doing kingdom work like Brandon and I, and I'm sure some of the listeners, it's tiring, it's exhausting. We keep getting loss after loss. We have enemies on all sides. The Lord is going to lift us up. Why? Because we're walking in the Spirit. We're walking in our purpose in Christ. And again, we're all on different missions. Brandon's on his mission. I'm on his mission. And when the paths cross, whatever it's meant for is meant for. Go support Brandon. Sign up for his Patreon. Brandon, again, his stuff is spot on, but people aren't catching up fast enough, but they're going to get there. Keep supporting them because we need these presentations.
Man of Daily Podcast, Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, and where he's referring to is Patreon. Also, although donation links should be below. If you're watching mine, I might you can probably copy and paste from one of my more recent episodes if you want to for that information. And again, I thank you and thank the ones that already do support, so I have time to make these presentations and do the research. I'm truly trying to edify the Ecclesia, which is not something I see too many Christian influencers putting out there. Not that I'm trying to influence in the modern social sense, but I'm just trying to inspire you to become better Christians by what we abstain from, and also understanding where things come from, because that is comforting to some people. Is when you just have an idea where you come from, you're not kind of going to fall for vagueness or lies. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do as Christians, is kind of always cut off the weeds that are going to choke out our faith from where we're trying to be grounded in the Word and rooted in the Word.
Hey, and if you want to go check out my social media, Cliff Truth to Faith on Facebook, or Truth to Faith Podcast on Instagram. I post a lot of stuff about working out. I combine it with scripture, just positive stuff to try to keep the ecclesia, the disciples of Christ who are on a narrow path. I'm trying to, build strength and give encouragement and show love. And if you want to go check it out, go check it out. I appreciate it. And Brandon, I love you, brother. Thank you for the presentation. You killed it as always. And I'm just waiting for that time, and I know it's coming where society and the people in the church and in this vice catch up, and they can get all this, you know, it's gold, man. It's gold, and it's happening, and you're spot on. I don't think you're wrong at all. I love you, brother. Thank you. God bless you, everybody.